Westford Conservation Commission on Wednesday, July 26, 2023. The first agenda item is open forum. Do any members of the commission have items for open forum? Matt?
The two trees on the Juniper Hill conservation parcel were cut down today. And DPW was also alerted to the crown of a tree that fell onto the main trail around Grassy Pond. Saw it yesterday, and they'll be addressing that in the upcoming days as schedules allow, but it was a pretty good size piece of it, and especially with the tree contractors in town today, I thought it was, if they had capacity to do that at the same time, but the assistant DPW director thought that their crews would be able to address it. So it's currently, you can pass underneath it, but it's there. And the strategic planning retreat is scheduled for September
7th?
They just made a last call for anybody with topics to present.
Yes.
But I haven't seen anything for registration yet.
Yeah, no.
What did you say?
It's
I haven't seen anything for registration online yet.
No.
But
Do you have a date?
September 7th. Thursday, September 7th. I think it starts at 5.
5 o'clock, it's 5 to 8.
So
But I haven't heard anything more than that.
that's all I have for.
Okay.
We weren't planning to have anything from us like that, I don't think.
I don't think I wasn't.
Let's see what we would be doing.
Kristen came out with a list of the topics that she has already on the agenda. There's like 6 or 7.
It's enough.
She's just looking for last call, so.
Do any members of the audience have something for open forum? Nope. Okay. Moving on to our 7:05 PM agenda item, continuation of a public hearing for Roberts, 7 Vineyard Road. Good evening.
Good evening, everybody. Nice to see you again. Glad to see everybody's well. My name is William Roberts, 7 Vineyard, seeking to do the 24 by 26 garage addition. Went through the meeting with the planning board last week. They had approved the project and was coming back to see finalization through your board, please.
So it included the plans for the commission, the RDA, and the plans. And if there's no further questions from the commission, I have the determination.
Was it the planning board or was it ZBA that needed the variance?
ZBA.
ZBA, okay, so it was,
Yeah, I misspoke, I'm sorry.
okay,
Yeah.
I just, we put things in the minutes and we like to have the
It needs to be
details
correct,
right.
I understand that. I apologize for the terminology.
No.
Yeah.
That happens to us all the time.
Yeah, I bet.
Okay, so no questions from members of the commission. Any questions from members of the audience? So, Matt, do you have any conditions or is?
No, especially where the existing kind of topography of the site, there's no additional conditions.
Okay, so can I have a motion to issue a negative determination of applicability, which is a good thing?
Okay.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
That's it.
All set?
Thank you all very much. Really appreciate it, sincerely. Thank you
Yep,
very
so
much.
Matt will be in
I'll be
touch
in touch
with.
tomorrow.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay,
Good evening.
good evening. Is there anything we want to tuck in since we're kind of,
Couple minutes ahead. Can do the discussion on the required information for legal notices, as that came up at the last meeting. Did reach out to town council. So the legal notices, or the information required for legal notices, reached out to town council following the last meeting, summarizing the commission's questions, and they opined that under the regulations of MGL, Mass General Law 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, just the notice of, you don't have to have the name of the applicant in. And so that was his opinion, and based upon the regulations. So if the commission, in the future wants to accommodate, a request for, a public, that certainly is an option. With that being said, a different section of general laws require that the public hearing notices be published in the newspaper of general circulation, the online edition of said newspaper, and also the aggregator, the masspublicnotices.org, so that there isn't any wiggle room.
So how do you do that, you know?
Well, right, so you can, well, and they opine that, the privacy granted of, sought, for having the legal notice list by property owner doesn't, between, available information on the town's GIS database. Additionally, the applications are public records, and, it's.
So I'm confused.
So-
So how are you going to break this out?
So the commission, if it would, in the event the commission,
Gets a
know-
request like we did.
I would defer to the commission to, either say yes, if somebody requests to be listed by property owner or by homeowner, something like that, I can certainly entertain that. Town council did comment that, in looking at various newspapers, for other towns' public hearings, notices, typically there's an entity or, a person or an entity which is listed. So it's common practice, but it's not required by.
So you're going to send him a notice?
So I've spoken with the resident who did speak, and they've decided not to pursue their application with the commission. So
That's interesting. Okay.
I'm now more educated about the information required about legal notices, and wanted to share that as well with the
But you did your due
commission.
diligence, and we needed to follow that out. So
Yep.
thank you for doing that. Okay.
Jim?
So on the Form 1, the DEP form, the state form, it's required to put the name of the homeowner there, the applicant?
Yes.
Okay, so, but not in the public notice in the
Or
newspaper?
the legal ad that?
Yeah, the legal ad that gets submitted to the newspaper.
And, and when they come in, and when a resident comes and speaks?
I didn't get clarification on that.
Like
That was a follow-up
like a town-
question.
It's just like a town meeting or any of the
I'll
meetings?
follow up with town council to get an answer on that, just so we have it in the event.
When someone speaks, they have to say their name, who they are.
Why?
Why?
Yeah, that's what I'm
Well,
asking.
that's why, and,
Do you not want to do that here either?
I don't know. He didn't last meeting. You asked him what his name was. Maybe you said to state it for the record, and he ignored you and just kept on going.
Well, that's interesting. I missed that.
I went back to
Okay,
watch,
okay,
so.
Okay.
I can ask town council
You might as well
to
find out. Okay,
have
thanks.
an answer,
Okay,
just-
thanks for following up.
that's all on that one.
Okay.
It's different.
Moving on to our 7:10 PM agenda item, public hearing for Gagny, 13 Jarvis Way.
Under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Westford's non-zoning wetlands bylaw, Chapter 171, the Westford Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, July 26, 2023, at 7:10 PM in Meeting Room 201 at Town Hall, 55 Main Street, to consider the request for determination of applicability application of Gerald and Natalie Gagny for construction of an approximately 305 square foot addition and deck to a dwelling within 100 feet of bordering vegetative wetlands at 13 Jarvis Way.
Good evening.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Matt Morrow from Morrow Environmental Consulting. I am the representative for the applicant this evening. So if, assuming this is...
Yeah, don't point at.
Yeah. So essentially what we have here is a request for determination for an addition to a single-family home within the buffer zone. This line right here is your 50-foot buffer zone. And you can see that the closest the addition comes to, at the closest point of the wetland that I delineated on and apparently partially off the property, is about 73.5 feet. The addition is slated to be put on with helical piles. So there will be no foundation. It will be done by helical piles, basically born into the ground. That's it. It's fairly simple proposal.
Jim?
Any information on the slope of the property between the proposed deck and the...
It's a flat lot. There's no
flat?
slope.
So it's grassed right now?
It's lawn.
Okay.
And
So no big concern then about infiltration of the deck if it's all flat? Okay.
now, in the narrative, I had proposed to put the erosion protection line right at the 50-foot zone. You know, you are gonna have equipment going around to put in the helical piles and such. So I wanted to make sure your 50-foot zone was demarcated both as erosion protection and a limit of work. So there would be no intrusion within 50 feet of that wetland. So,
And it's going to be pervious surface under the addition?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, so the addition's going to have a roof. How is the runoff off the roof going to be handled?
Any runoff from the roof would be handled by roof gutters that would go to, you've got your downspouts, and there would be riprap pads under the downspouts. So essentially, there would be stone to dissipate the energy. It's not going to be, it's a very small addition, so there's not going to be much of an increase
So
on roof runoff.
would it be incorporated into existing downspouts, or would there be new ones?
These would be new ones.
Okay.
But he's saying it's so small that you don't need any type of,
Right.
you know, drainage other than
And it's a
just
flat
drainage.
roof.
Yeah.
It's a flat
Flat land.
site, so you're not
Yeah.
worried. Okay. Matt, do you have any,
I do not.
do members of the audience have any comments or questions? Any conditions?
The only condition, you know, and as provided by the representative, you know, the erosion controls be installed no closer than 50 feet to the BBW.
So you're looking for a request for a conditional
Negative.
Yes.
negative determination?
Can I have a motion for a conditional negative determination?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Thank you very much, folks. I appreciate your time.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Moving on to our 7:15 PM agenda item. It's a public hearing for Batic, 40 Forge Village Road.
Under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Westford's non-zoning wetlands bylaw, Chapter 171, the Westford Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, July 26, 2023, at 7:15 PM in Meeting Room 201 at Town Hall, 55 Main Street, to consider the request for determination of applicability application for Denise Baddick for abandonment of an existing septic tank and installation of a new septic tank, pump chamber, and portions of a forced main within 100 feet of bordering vegetative wetlands at 40 Forge Village Road.
Good evening, I'm Kirk Fitzpatrick with Civil Solutions. I'm here on behalf of Denise Baddick for a property at 40 Forge Village Road. Maybe we put up the plan.
Yep. Okay.
So basically what we have proposed before you is a sewage disposal system upgrade for the existing 4-bedroom house. The house is being transferred and it failed the Title V inspection. Right now, it's got a 1,000-gallon tank behind the house and then a leaching system just adjacent to that septic tank. There's a bordering vegetated wetland on this side of the property, which actually wraps around the front. And then there's a drain that goes under the driveway and connects to another vegetated wetland on the other side. And then actually there's a low spot out in the back here. So the 100-foot buffer zone extends across the back, basically into the corner of the garage, and then down to the bottom of the page there. So what we're proposing to do is come out to a new 1,500-gallon 2-compartment septic tank, and that's going to flow to a 1,000-gallon pump chamber, and that's going to pump the liquid over to a leach field. Basically, we've situated the leach field as further away from the house, just because it is going to be elevated. This comes to a corner, and then this is a tree line in the back here, and there's a tree line over here, and that kind of extends around here. So we're trying to situate the leach field in an area that's not going to impact the yard. It is going to come up about 1.5 feet because we get a water table at 3.5 feet. This plan has been approved by the Westford Board of Health, and I'd be happy to answer any questions the commission may have.
So this is, the tree line that you're showing is existing as well as proposed?
Yes, there'd be no tree cutting associated with the installation of the system.
Okay.
And we do have erosion control around the area of the installation for the septic tank and the pump chamber. And that's composed of straw wattles, insulation fencing.
Any questions?
I was out at the site today, reviewed the wetland delineation. Actually, it was performed by Mr. Mora, who just vacated the seat, and the flags looked appropriate. And as mentioned, all the work is in existing lawn areas of the property.
Any comments or questions from members of the audience? So I'm presuming it's a conditional negative?
Yes, actually, there's no condition. They're showing the erosion controls on the
Okay,
plan, so. no.
so it's on the plan, so that's sufficient. Okay. Can I have a motion for a negative determination of applicability?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Thank you very much.
7:20. Do you want to try and sneak another one in?
I have the request for
The certificate of compliance.
Right.
Oh, that's right, yes. Yeah. So the request for certificate of compliance for Batek 40 Forge Village Road, DEP file number 334-0246.
I can handle this one. The attorney for the selling party reached out as an order of conditions from 1986. It has not received a certificate of compliance.
Just needed it.
The
Did you find any paperwork?
I did. I actually found paperwork, and between the plan on the screen shows a 26 by 18 foot addition to the westerly side of the house. Between the existing septic plan that was filed, it certainly, the house appears consistent with what was proposed, and then also the assessor's building sketch shows an 18 by 24 foot addition in the location. So based off of a hand-drawn sketch, I think the substantial compliance with the order of conditions was achieved, and would recommend the commission issue an certificate of compliance for the project.
So can I have a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for DEP file number 334-0246 Forge Village Road?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Moving on to our 7:20 PM agenda item. It's a public hearing for Canal McGaw, 29 Keys Road.
Yes. Under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Westford's non-zoning wetlands bylaw, Chapter 171, the Westford Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, July 26, 2023 at 7:20 PM in Meeting Room 201 at Town Hall, 55 Main Street, to consider the notice of intent application of Camille Cannell McGaw for the removal of 1 tree and 5 boulder retaining walls, installation of footings and 3 concrete retaining walls, foundations, installation of 2 block retaining walls and associated excavation, grading, and soil replacement within 100 feet of Kai's Pond bank and bordering land subject to flooding at 29 Kai's Road.
Good evening.
It's Camille Connell McGaw, and I'm here representing myself. The engineer was unable to make it. He was on vacation this week, so I will do my best to answer your questions.
So, let me see if I understand this. You're removing the bolt retaining wall here, and then, is that right, Matt? They're removing the retaining wall that's closest to the house, and then they're gonna be putting on this deck?
Yep, so as explained prior to filing the notice of intent, there are multiple retaining walls going up from Kai's Road up to the property. In the end of 2020, early 2021, the Zoning Board of Appeals granted a variance for an encroachment into the front yard setback of, to Kai's Road, whereas a proposed second-story porch was approved, ultimately approved, and now as they're starting to do the work, based upon the grading of the site, if I can find the relevant plan. That's a good start point. So there is a substantial elevation change from the Kai's Road up to the house, shown kind of in this plan to the top left. There are boulder.
Yeah, because they're going to
Rendered
make
boulder.
that hook into that, you know, to go underneath where they park.
Exactly, you know, and so kind of the left elevation, so you see, you know, the existing boulder retaining walls rendered. And as proposed, this actually may be the best view, the boulder retaining walls are proposed to be removed, and the plan calls them concrete foundations, you know, whereas they do have to support this kind of covered patio area and the second-story porch, but also, you know, to foundations to be installed to maintain the, there are some pretty, I think the foundations are to.
So they're redoing, so they're benching this up and rebuilding that whole front there?
Yes.
Because right now, it just kind of slopes up to it
Well,
with that
it's-
single retaining wall pretty much up closer to the house.
There's currently 1, 2, and so I can go to this.
Sort of like 2.5 retaining walls.
Well, I see it here, and I know what you're saying, maybe I just recognize the one that's closest to the house.
So the plan is going to be in 2 phases, so but we were recommended that we should put the whole thing in because the conditions would be good for 3 years. So the initial plan is to do the one you had mentioned, the L-shaped wall there.
Yeah.
And then the other side of that wall on the interior, to remove the boulders there, and then we've got to dig out the foundation there, put in footings to support the double porch, and because the current boulder wall will not support that.
No, and I didn't think it would.
Yeah.
But I didn't know, it looked like you were doing some other, almost like stepping it up.
Yeah, and so, you know, if the actually.
Looked like they were bringing in
Yeah.
fill and building it up and terracing it.
Yeah, I mean, so currently it's terraced from Kai's Road down here up to, this is the first kind of retaining wall, and then it continues up the driveway. Here's a second retaining wall, and then there's this third L-shaped retaining wall. As explained, so the first, you know, phase 1 was to remove this retaining wall directly adjacent to the dwelling and driveway, and replace that with concrete walls.
We also include this wall.
In that, right, okay, yeah. And then the subsequent, you know, phase 2, you know, was to redo the secondary, the wall nearest to Kai's Road. And both of those would be concrete block.
Concrete block, yeah.
As opposed to the boulder, kind of just staged boulder.
Purpose would be to reduce the very tall boulder wall.
What's the height, vertical elevation of those block walls?
Lower?
On the wall, I think they're over 10 feet tall,
The existing or the new?
the existing.
The existing, so from, you know, this point of Kai's Road up to the corner of the house is this, it's 100, yeah, 100 feet elevation here, 25 feet up to the corner of the house.
Jim?
A few things that are missing. There's no distances from the pond to the proposed construction. There's no erosion control measures anywhere on the plans.
So I
I didn't know that.
Erosion control measures are actually in the,
Pardon me?
I think the erosion control measures are actually in the engineering plans that I submitted.
So they show the detail for the erosion control plan, I think.
C000.
Yeah.
It's all the wall information there.
Where's C?
Well, in any case, if there's just a detail about how it's going to be mounted or nailed, hammered into the ground, we need to see where it's going to be run. And given the steepness from the pictures down to the road, I would want to know where any drainage sites are on the road, whether they need silt sacks, and whether we should have an erosion control measure right along the roadway also.
And so you want a,
If all those boulders are going to be ripped out, there's going to be dirt churned up. So I think we need an erosion control barrier right down at the edge of the road. I don't know if there are any drainage, manholes there. If they are, they need silt sacks. And we also don't have the distances to the wetland. I assume the road right away is 20 feet wide? 30
there's
feet?
another house with a property on the other side.
I think
Where it
the
says
nearest
Keys Pond?
No, across the street's the pond.
Right.
Well,
Yeah, there.
It's both.
Yeah, I think the.
It only shows a pond on the...
Yeah, it just shows the pond.
yeah,
On the main plan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what. And so there is some
29
land.
Yeah, the 29 Keys Road is across the street, and on this plan, it would be toward the right.
Yeah, so the edge of the water body doesn't go up to the edge of the road. Yeah, I know, it shows, I mean,
Yeah.
again, this was, for the, this plan was prepared for the zoning
But
board of
like
appeals.
Jim is saying, I mean, there's a lot of activity that's going to go on here.
Yes.
Big boulders put out, retaining walls put in,
Yep.
materials brought in, and without some pretty serious erosion control measures, it's going to end up on the road and in the pond.
Yes.
This is gonna. It's a steep site.
well, and we'd also want a proposed plan that gives that level of detail so that when it's handed to the contractor, it's very clear where the erosion control is, where the walls need to go, all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And
There's a lot
something
going
that,
on in a small area.
yeah,
It's a good precaution.
yeah. But it just, we also need the
clarify.
level of detail so that when it comes at the end of the process, when an as-built plan is prepared and submitted to get a certificate of compliance, we have enough information that we can compare the proposed to the as-built and say, yep, everything's where it's supposed to be, or stuff like that.
I do want to clarify, there's not going to be any material brought onto the property, just removed. We're going to move the boulders and have them taken off-site. The area that's the boulders are retaining now will be dug out, and foundations put in and columns put in, and then that will be put back once the retaining walls are.
We're just trying to prevent any silt and
Yeah.
Sediment from
Yeah, and I
flowing down
think
into the
engineering plans do call
pond.
for silt fences and,
Yeah, the detail, the silt fence installation, so, the detail,
Right.
the detail is appropriate.
How it's
but-
mounted.
But where
Right.
explicitly, it's to be.
And given the steepness, I'm thinking we might need like 2 layers, one at the roadway and one just to the west of where the work is occurring.
Right. And in terms of, find a plan to talk to.
And we should take off the pond if it's not in the right location.
Yeah, and again, that was, I think prepared for the ZBA and, a building that's sufficient information.
I was looking for what the distances are.
I understand, and I think, on the existing site plan, I think those details can get added, down here, because again, there is, I think the nearest corner of the property to, measured off a GIS is approximately 45 feet. And it's, I think over 65, or the front corner, the front corner is 41 feet to the proposed addition. So, you know, it's certainly, you know, the work associated is in the, you know, or predominantly in the second half of the 100-foot buffer.
Well, that's got to be on there, too.
I understand.
All right.
Any changes being made to the driveway at all? That's all pretty much staying the same,
Yeah, no, the driveway's not moving.
Okay.
I'm sure it'll be
or
torn
the
up.
grade or whatever, or?
No.
There is the one tree that is being proposed to be removed. It's at the corner of the driveway, and guys, I'm not sure if it's in the public right of way, you know, may have that be a condition, special condition, that, you know, if within the right of way, you know.
About 20, I think it's 26 feet from the road. On that property.
Oh, okay. It looked, so it's further up from the corner. Okay.
Yep.
I thought it was closer to the actual corner.
And then, well, I think, so the tree is in the buffer zone.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So, yeah, but I think it would also be good to indicate the tree on the plan.
Okay.
You know, this is a plan that meets the needs of other boards, but in terms of for our needs, you know, we need distances to the edge of the pond, we need the buffer zones indicated, we need where the erosion goes. So there's a lot of detail that we look to see on a plan, and just the location of that one tree would make things very clear.
Okay.
Okay.
Planting plan for the buffer zone?
Jim?
Are there any underground utilities at all?
No.
None at all? No water, no gas?
No, we have
Okay.
well water, which is behind the house, and oil.
No natural gas?
Septic is
Okay, good.
in front or behind the house?
It's on the opposite side of the house. So as you're looking at the map, it's on the right-hand side there and in the back of the house.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
The tanks are in the back and the leach field is on the right-hand side.
Marilyn?
Would it be appropriate to ask for another tree to replace the one that's coming down?
Yeah.
Just because we live in the world we live in today where trees are so important.
Okay.
And it just, yeah, it just.
Doesn't matter where.
Okay.
Well, it
Well,
needs to be.
yes and no, yes and no.
But it
You can
doesn't
work
have
that
to
out.
be another of the same kind. So if the concern is that this tree is growing tall or it leans, you could certainly have a tree that might not grow to the same height,
Okay.
whatever.
We'll work that out with
A
Matt.
native species. So it's another tree. It's not,
Right.
doesn't need to be a direct
No,
replacement.
Exactly.
What is
But
the
you can
one
work
that's
that
there
out with
now?
Matt.
A pine, an oak?
I think it's either an oak or a maple. It's
Okay, so-
currently getting outcompeted by a pine.
Okay.
That's,
So maybe you can work that out with her, with
Yeah.
where it works for you. I don't care where it is.
right. I mean, there's
I
certainly.
just want another tree.
I'd like to see a planting plan for the flower bed and all the area that's going to be in the buffer
Does
zone.
that affect us?
Just, I'd like to see native plants within the buffer zone that close to the resource.
So
area.
in, where there's the flower bed between the two walls,
Okay.
because that's in the buffer zone, we asked to have native species there. Just,
Once again, Matt can help you.
Yeah, I can,
Yeah.
there are resources for kind of how to select them.
Choose
and-
from them.
Okay, do I need that, like, those two walls are probably not gonna be done for another year, maybe two.
Mm-hmm.
Do I need them?
No, I mean, and that could, you know, but certainly to the commission, you know, that could be something that gets, you know, it's a condition of approval and needs to be provided prior to, you know, the execution of phase two,
Okay.
you know.
Yeah.
It doesn't, you know, doesn't need to be done, you know, in the next month.
yeah, and a lot of it is, I think one of the most important thing is what are the species you intend to plant, not necessarily where in the bed that they're located, you know. So
Okay.
if figuring out what those species are is something you're going to do as you approach the next phase of the project, then that's certainly something where we can write the order that says you'll provide that list of species for review and approval by the commission or its agent, and then that prevents you from having to come back to us at that point.
Okay.
Okay. Jim?
One more thing. This may already be fine. I saw the stamps. There's a surveyor's stamp on the main plan, and there's a civil engineer's on the topographic. Because there's walls taller than 4 feet, you need a civil engineer stamp on the wall design. You may very well have it. I don't have those plans in front of me. You do? Good. Okay, great.
And that's, you know, a usual, fairly common.
I just didn't check it.
Yeah, and that's something that I usually put in the special condition that, you know, for the building permit, it'll be required, and, you know, I'll add the plan to the, you know, that information to the project file, just so we have it. But, yeah, there are certainly some, not the biggest walls we've seen
Right,
around town,
but they're tall.
They're
Yeah.
pretty good.
Yeah. I don't have anything else.
Well, bigger than what's here right now.
Yes, yeah.
Far bigger. You know, and that concerns me a little bit, you know, that, you know, this is definitely more intrusive than what's currently there by the time it's finished. But, you know, let's see what we can do with it and, you know, make it as good as we can.
Well, is some of the height of the walls, the fact that part of the wall is going to be below grade?
Doesn't count.
Understand the question?
I think yes.
Or was it simply to give it more flat, to give it
I hope
the
so.
terraced areas flat? I mean, right now, it grades up to the house. Right now, what I'm looking at is, you know, it's terraced 2 tiers, but they seem flat, and in order to get up to that height, which is, you're saying there's a 25-foot grade difference between the road and, you know, the bottom of that house, that, you know, they need that, but, you know, do they need that? Does that need to be level? I mean, they're bringing in a lot of fill.
I mean, in terms of the, I don't know, I mean, that may be a question that the engineer, you know, would be better suited to.
I don't think we're going to be bringing in a lot of fill because we're going to be reducing the wall on the road, and that fill will go on the second tier. Right now, there's such a steep hill there, we can't actually walk down that side. We can't mow the lawn. It's too steep, it's not safe. And so to reduce the slope on the side yard, it makes more sense to be able to put a secondary wall all the way down instead of where it stops now, which is halfway.
There's a heck of a lot of wall here. I mean, this is what it's looking like from the road right now. It does not look like the...
No, this is the proposed.
Right, what it will look like.
Yes.
But I guarantee you it doesn't look anything like this right now.
I can take photos for the commission. Is there any interest in a site visit? Or would photos suffice for the next meeting?
Photos.
And people can, if people want to take an in-person look, they can drive by.
Yeah, I mean, it's right at
Road,
the road's
yeah.
right there.
So,
Walk by.
yeah. Okay, do you have any other questions?
No, I don't have any further items to bring up.
Okay.
Questions, consideration.
Any comments or questions from members of the audience? If you'll come up and tell us who you are at the microphone and.
Hi, I'm Kathy Bucaneri. My husband and I live right across the street at 26 Keys. I would like to recommend that at least 3 of you go out and take a look at what it looks like now, only because it really is very steep. And of course, we're concerned that everything's going to come right down on our home. We have a driveway that's a back driveway that goes, it really is right across from that driveway right there. And frightens me to think of what's going to come down off that hill, no matter how careful they are. Like we're right across the street, so, and the pond's right there. So please come look at it. I would really like 3 of you to go and take a look at it. And I agree with Eric, it really is a very large amount of wall there. You got to see it. Thank you.
It is out of character. You know, as much as we talk about it, you know, take a look at this when you come by. Look at how far they're looking to do this wall. You're talking 10 foot up, and then another 10 foot up, and,
Okay, and
yeah.
We have a list of the items that we've identified as, that were lacking.
Yes, I've taken notes as to items to be added to the plan.
And those are?
Distances to the resources, erosion controls at the edge of the roadway and along, you know, and as needed on the existing the plan. Identify any drainage in the road and silt sacks if necessary. Plan the 100-foot buffer from the wetlands. And natives, you know, I mean, it's more a special condition, but the native species to be identified for the flower bed.
And the distances from the
Yes, the distances to the
construction to the resource, okay, all right. And the proper location of the pond.
And a tree.
In a tree.
and a tree.
country.
With the variance application plot plan, the location of the existing boulder retaining walls, was that engineeringly located, or is that just kind of a little bit more freehand?
Says it's just- I mean, this one, it says it's stamped by a surveyor, mass surveyor.
Yeah, so
So that, and that includes the location of the stone walls?
Doesn't say anything's excluded
Doesn't say
from
doesn't,
his
yeah.
survey, yeah, so it must be,
So, okay.
This is typical.
I wouldn't be against visiting the site, but I want to have a plan for what's actually proposed before we go.
Okay. Any other input from the members of the audience? Okay, so we need to continue the public hearing in terms of with what we're looking for on the proposed plan. Do you have a sense of how long until that revised plan is ready?
I don't know, I would have to call the company that did the original plans and have them come out. I'm not sure when I could get that scheduled.
Okay,
I mean, it does, we can certainly continue this, the commission could certainly continue it to the August 9th meeting. And if materials, you know, the timeline's not, you know, it's going to need,
Yeah, we can
the
just push
commission
it
meets the
off. Yeah.
23rd as
Extend
well,
it.
so we
Yeah.
In the back.
you can just let Matt know, and at that meeting, continue it to a subsequent meeting that works with the schedule. Jim?
Ma'am, did you want to copy down the list that, as Matt was reading through?
I'll send this
Oh,
as
you're
well.
going to give everyone? Okay, great.
I'll send that tomorrow.
Can I ask, is the primary concern that the big wall, which will be like phase 2, is the primary concern not necessarily, for example, removing the tree or the wall closer to the house?
Well, I don't know where the 100-foot boundary is for our jurisdiction, but my concern is the slope in general and the construction being done at the top and on the slope itself. It's conducive to erosion.
So I think at this point, with all the details that we've asked to see on the plan, that will help us better understand the work that's proposed, and then, you know, that may answer our questions, or we may then have follow-on questions once we have that clearer detail.
Okay,
Okay?
all right.
Yeah, and also, since you're planning the work in 2 phases,
Yeah.
it would probably be good, especially with the walls, to identify which portions are phase 1 and which portions are phase 2. You know, so that if we're looking at walls and we can say, oh, this section here is 1, this section here is phase 2.
I think I did give that to Matt already.
But seeing it on the plan,
Oh, all
it
right.
makes it a lot easier when you're looking at all that information together. I personally find it clearer rather than needing to refer back to verbiage someplace. And then because that plan really becomes the plan of record, and that more than the narrative or anything else is what we look at when you've got your work crew on site, you know, that becomes the one source of what they're approved to work.
Okay.
Okay. So can I have a motion to continue the public hearing to August 9th?
So moved.
All those in favor? Aye. So, and if it's not working out with the engineer, just let Matt know, and if the engineer gives you a timeframe for when the plan can be ready,
Okay,
then we would continue the public hearing until that next meeting after that date.
okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to our 7:30 PM agenda item, a request to archery hunt by Hoag on conservation parcel 045-0009-0000.
I think there's a, somewhere in the package, there was an error in the parcel number. I don't know if it was on this. We should confirm that. There's one of the places that the parcel, the assessor's parcel number was listed was wrong. And I think it's that middle digit, like whether it's a 9 or a 6.
Sure, I will take a look at that quickly.
I don't recall where the error was.
Sure, yeah, if you certainly can, provide them to the.
I wasn't quite sure what we used last year.
As they come on my property every day.
Oh, dear.
So this is
So hand it out first.
Okay.
and then- Okay.
resources, I mean, printed out 4 and,
Okay.
sorry.
Sure.
Oh, there's
These are all
three
the
of them? They're all the same?
I have, those go together. Those go together.
Matt gave me his.
Oh, he did?
Yeah,
Okay, all right.
good.
Okay, help yourself.
There we go.
I'll share hers. I'll share this.
Oh, okay.
So it's a typo in the agenda. It's.
Is that what it was? I
Yeah,
can't remember
it-
where it was. I just saw an
No,
error
yeah,
somewhere.
and so it's correct in the letter from last year, parcel 04500990000. So,
0099, is that the right
yes,
number?
99.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
So when we do any kind of
so
motion.
minutes taker, make note of that.
Yeah.
Okay. So good evening.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, good. It's been a few, I think I've been hunting on the property for about 4 years, so I kind of forgot the protocol for coming in. So, essentially, I'm requesting permission to hunt on that property again. It's directly in back of my house, in between Flushing Pond Road and Forest Road, and Route 40 and Tingsboro Road. That picture, so the first picture you see, which has more red lines, and then there's this one as well. What I did was I pulled up a geo map, year 1, and those lines represent, the red lines represent markers, basically requirements. So 500 feet from an existing dwelling or lived-in dwelling, 150 feet from a major road, and 50 feet from a path or a walkway. So the black, you can't really see it, the white dots, those are just a natural sort of circle, a walking path on that property. It's about 44 acres, I believe. So essentially what I did was I plotted it all out. That dark green patch essentially is what would be essentially legal based on the requirements for hunting in Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. So, and the green dot essentially is where my stand is. So I would just humbly ask for permission to.
You had said this is bow hunting?
It's yeah, sorry. So it's only bow hunting.
Jim?
What kind of tree stand do you use? A climber or a
I had a
ladder or a strap
I
on?
had a ladder stand.
Okay, no drilling into the tree then?
No, definitely not. No
All right.
drilling into the trees. I actually have a climber now. I was out there scouting last year. It's been pretty quiet, I'll tell you, the last 2 years. unfortunately.
All right, and you're
Somebody told
asking
them
for
you were
archery
coming?
permission only.
Yeah, sure.
And archery goes from like roughly middle of October.
October
for a
16th
few-
to December
just for
31st.
Just for a few weeks, but you can go all the way to the end of the year if you wear an orange vest and hat and all that.
Absolutely.
And so you're asking from archery season commencement through the end of the hunting season?
Correct.
Okay.
And yes, thank you for, you remembered. Yeah, so along with that, I know, recall one of the prereqs being, as far as hunting lanes go, I wouldn't remove any branches larger than a quarter in thickness. Sort of I clean up after myself and I don't leave any trash out there or whatever the case may be. So that's really all I have. I don't know. I'll answer any questions that you have.
Just in looking, the select board has a policy for hunting on their land. I think there are a couple good pieces within this that maybe if the commission would like to adopt, or kind of reference the select board's policy, so there's one policy of.
Might send that to us next time, too. You can send that to us next time.
It's in the packet.
In the packet, okay.
Yeah.
'Cause I didn't see it.
And,
Yes, sir.
but also some of it is, the trail entrances identified for the setbacks, march that archery is to be occurring during that, from September 1st through September 31st. An example is at the corner of the town hall parking lot, as the rear parcel here, or area behind town hall, is one of the approved areas under the select board's care and custody for hunting. And I'm sure it's fairly consistent with the activities with which you've been conducting yourself. And it's more so, but there is also a release, which the select board drafted for their parcels. I think that would be good for the commission to have, just,
Sure.
I mean, it's.
Absolutely.
And one of the other.
Let me just interrupt real quick so I'm clear. So I think I read something along right up there that mentioned marking the trail?
Yes, and I want to follow up with the town manager's office to see if the town put up that sign, as a parcel with which there's hunting, occurring on, or if that was at the.
Well, it says select board responsibilities as a heading above it.
Oh, so that's probably a town responsibility for that then.
Does that have to do with specific to those lottery parcels?
Yes, those 5.
Yeah, okay.
Those are under the selectmen's control. And years ago, they'd asked a group of citizens to get together and come up with some guidance for the selectmen regarding requests for hunting. They didn't know what to do about it. And so I was the representative from the Conservation Commission, and there were probably, I guess, 10 or 12 people altogether. And we worked for about 4 or 5 months, something like that, and came up with with most of these regulations. Then the selectmen tweaked them a little bit, made a couple of changes, and put them into effect. There's been very few hunters that have taken advantage of the selectmen's parcels. There's a few that do every year,
Sure.
but very few. But that's just those 5 parcels that the selectmen identified.
Sure.
That's it.
But I did receive a phone call at I think it was probably early January, from prior to your tree stand being removed. They noticed it, and then they were concerned that hunting was, and they didn't have any idea about it. So I think having, unless the deer are reading signs now.
They're smart, but not that smart.
They're on the internet.
Putting kind of some
Sick humor.
at the trail accesses, I think is certainly good to notify the public and just make them aware of what's going on.
So the
I could do
selectmen
that.
going to put
There's
signs up on our property, or we are?
I mean, I think that would be us, but it would be our responsibility. There are funds in the land management budget, the commission has approved hunting on this parcel. So I think putting up a.
Sounds like a good idea.
I could do that. There's 3 entrances to that whole parcel.
I mean, and that's something that, you know, we could certainly, you know, if the commission approves, we can certainly work to getting those put up in the next couple of months.
Any comments or questions from members of the audience? Okay, so can I have a motion to?
I'll move that we approve archery hunting for the 2023 season on, the correct number parcel is 04500990000 in accordance with the distance maps that he's provided us. And
The select board, the select board's policy.
And the select board's policy that the town is going to put up signage at the 3 entranceways.
Can I have a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
Okay, so,
Oh, thank you very much.
thank you.
Good luck,
Thanks.
Yep.
and be safe in the tree stand.
So just for next
Make a motion
steps,
to close the
for
public
signing that waiver?
I'll send it to you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Good night.
Good night. So moving on to our 7:35 PM agenda item, it's a request for certificate of compliance for Casano, 1 through 3 Emery Way.
Could it be any smaller? Should have brought my glasses. Is the print getting smaller, or is it me? Or is it 2?
Do you want full-size plans? We can get full-size plans for
No,
the
but it could be a
commission,
little.
for the
it could be a
commissioners,
little
if you want
bigger.
if you want a 3x4.
This is 2 pike. Holy moly, I need a magnifying glass.
Good evening. Ian Ainsley from Meiser-Brehm Corporation. I do have full-size plans on the board if you need to look at them.
I mean, would the audience like to see the size of this? I know I'm old, but.
So we were here, myself and Don Cusano, the builder/applicant. We were here about a month ago in front of you for this certificate request. I think you only had at the time an as-built plan of the whole subdivision. You didn't have these individual lot plans, so hopefully you have seen those by now. They are a larger scale, so you can see more detail. You can see, well, compared to the subdivision plan, you can see a little bit more detail. And you can see what was originally permitted in greater detail. And I think these plans do a better job comparing and contrasting what was built and what was permitted. We did get a list of comments and requests from Matt about a couple weeks ago, to which we responded. I think we hit each of those things that he was looking for. It was ensuring that we were complying with some of the conditions in the order. One of the main things that I'll mention is it was requested by Matt, and I think we discussed it at the previous meeting. You were looking for a plan for the invasive knotweed that's out there. We did get a plan for that from a company that does that work. They're proposing kind of a long-term plan, I think over the span of possibly up to 3 years, with most of the treatment occurring this August, which is when the knotweed is in bloom. So that's a bit of a kind of a long-term item that we're committed to doing. But I think that's probably the main component. Happy to go through the plans in detail if you want to, but otherwise I'll take questions.
My apologies, I don't think I provided the knotweed action plan in the packet. I had it too. But I may.
Jim?
Different from the knotweed. On plan for number 1, Anna Marie Way, on the east side of the property, there's a wall that's off the boundary, off the property line. Is that okay with the, and that's not one of the other lots here, is it?
No, so that was actually requested by the historic board.
Not to
because
put,
the house that was there previously was considered like a historic building, so they did request that that lot be for that wall to be installed.
Who owns the lot? It's not marked on the plan.
Who owns it?
Yeah, because I mean, it's nice that the historic people want a wall, but you can't just go put it up on someone else's property.
Oh, well,
I think that's the right of way.
That's the right of way. That's the street right of way. So that's Carlisle Road. So if you're looking at that plan, that wall is right on the right of way, basically between that lot and
All
Carlisle
right,
Road.
does the highway department know that?
This has been reviewed by the engineering department, and I
Right.
believe the planning board as well. I haven't, nobody has said anything to me about it thus far, but it has been reviewed, like I said, by engineering and planning.
So, Historical Society had requested it, or highway?
Historical.
Historical, all right. I think we just ought to let them know where it is, what it is.
So that, an as-built landscape wall, so that was not on,
Not a retaining wall, it's not holding back soil. It's more of a ornamental aesthetic type wall.
okay. So that was not part of the original plan that we reviewed and approved, but it was something that one of the other commissions.
Correct, and I believe it's also entirely outside the riverfront and buffer zone, so I don't think it's
All right, if it's that, it's outside our jurisdiction anyway.
Yeah, okay,
Okay, good enough.
it's a fair point.
I withdraw my question then.
okay. I had a question in terms of the stormwater basin containing slightly less as-built volume, and when I did the calculations, it was like 26% less. I was just kind of curious how that would have really, that much of a difference would have a minimal impact on peak flow rates.
I think oftentimes, two of the things that really influence how much water is coming out of there is the outlet itself. So the actual pipe that controls the rate of the water. So if it's set up a little bit higher, sometimes the volume, as you go further up the basin banks, as long as it's essentially the same at the bottom, and that outlet structure is, that volume down there is all essentially the same, that won't cause a big difference in most of the storms. The other thing to consider is this is a pretty good sized property. We looked at the wetland as the point of analysis, so you have a lot of flow that's coming from the lawns, the forest, that area. So there's only a certain percentage of that peak flow being routed through the pond.
Okay.
We did, at the request of the engineering department, do calculations to verify that those peak flows still are under the pre-development, and they are.
Okay.
And I will say the other thing, sometimes we make them a little bit bigger than they need to be on purpose for this exact reason. We don't like to have no room for error. So,
Okay.
yep.
Just like to call out the, one deviation, there's a as-built retaining wall at the back corner of Lot 3 within the buffer. Originally, it was proposed as grading. It's now concrete blocks with shown max height less than, equals 3 feet. Same along the side, but this corner here is within the buffer. One of the other items that was brought up during my review prior for the certificate of compliance that I appreciate the commission weighing in on was one of the special conditions of the order number 55, which required that the language be included in the deed, which both were for lots 1 and 2 was provided. The special condition was any language required by Natural Heritage in its letter dated October 25th shall be included in any deeds prepared for the lots of the subdivision, shall be provided to the Natural Heritage. The letter from 2021, 22, from Mass Wildlife didn't have didn't specify that same condition as their letter from 2005. And it's just, I tried recalling why it would have been included if, and if, I didn't want to I don't imagine we would have put in a special condition that would have been for not, but at the same time, based upon Natural Heritage's letter from March 2022, they didn't, carry that same language forward from 2005. So, if the language in the deeds, as shown here, that portions of the property are within the jurisdictional areas of the town of Westford non-zoning wetland bylaw, and also the state, actually they put it into each. So, I think it is, I want the commission to weigh in whether that is
Probably
sufficient.
safe to take the later wording.
But the later wording is less restrictive.
I understand that, but they would have seen the original wording too.
I don't know, I agree with that, I think we should go with.
So, I guess for my clarification, the National Heritage letter, basically, with the original filing, it indicated that the property was also, that there was also jurisdiction, or that there...
Because there was one of the project site occurs within the actual habitat of the wood turtle, a state listed rare species. They required that a permanent limit of disturbance marked by concrete bounds. A portion of this area, as shown in the site plan, may be mowed once annually between October 15th and May 1st. The permanent limit of disturbance restricted, restricted mowing area and relevant site plan shall be referenced in the deeds of the subdivision parcels in order to reduce the risk of future encroachment into important habitat areas.
And was it included?
Well, they didn't do any deeds because the project didn't move forward under that original permitting.
And so, in 2022, when, the new notice of intent was re-reviewed, based on a review of the information that was provided and the information that is currently contained in the database, the division has determined that this project as currently proposed will not adversely affect the actual resource area habitat of state-protected rare wildlife species. So
perhaps the map changed from
a map changed
the
or
first time to the second time. That does happen.
And, then they finish up with, therefore, it is our opinion that this project meets the state-listed species performance standard for the issuance of an order of conditions. So they didn't.
Is the monumentation that was mentioned in the first letter in place on the ground?
It's in place now as wooden posts with, kind of current conservation post design of 4x4 post, 2 feet in, 2 feet out, with a signage on it.
So if a homeowner on one of these properties decided that they wanted to come forward and do something in this area, would the normal process come up with the fact that this is maybe something that should be checked with National Heritage?
Well, NOI would go there if there was a new proposal to add an addition or a pool or something like that. It would go, and they would get another letter that would be.
They would need to get a determination
Okay,
that.
so it's.
Maps, yeah.
Okay. So we've, the need to file with us is there to do more work. And then that would be the trigger to also look into National Heritage?
Yes, that's my understanding.
Okay.
Okay.
Do any other Okay.
When I was out today walking portions of the property, most of all of Lot 1 is stable, and I recommended that the erosion controls behind that onto Lot 2 be removed. Lot 2, some of the loam has shifted onto the straw wattle, and, you know, stabilization of that they may need to, you know, or just move the wattle to stabilize, you know, the area that's now of loam that has accumulated. Also, while I was on the site, I did observe some pieces of asphalt in kind of an area of fill within the limit of works, but, you know, one of the special conditions is that, you know, only clean fill shall be used the project. And so I don't know if that was a limited instance, or if, you know, I want to follow up with the town engineers and the health department staff who were more regularly on site to see if that was something they observed, you know, because if it's on the surface, you know, what's 4 inches down, what's 4 inches beyond that, you know, and if clean fill was, you know, if, you know, can certainly ask for receipts of, you know, the from wherever the fill was, you know, acquired, to, you know, have somebody certify that it was, you know, clean, and, you know, this just happens to be, you know,
A fluke.
something that, you know, occurred. Right.
So we're doing our due diligence.
Right.
So you were saying Lot 1 looks like it's stabilized, Lot 2 is not fully stabilized, has some...
No, they need to kind of remove the,
Okay.
you know, the erosion control. And Lot 3, they're in, if we scroll back up to this plan, based off of current or recent, was a washout in, Pool Corner here. In this area, I think the rain accumulated and ended up undermining the erosion control, and it went down. It did not enter the wetland resource, but it certainly moved closer to the wetland within the buffer.
At this stage in the program, we shouldn't be seeing, or of the project, we shouldn't be seeing silt flowing or anything like that. We should be seeing stabilized growth, green, whether it's lawn or scrub brush or something that's growing, putting down roots. So lots 2 and 3 both need work still.
Lot
Recommend we
1,
do-
lot 1 still has, you know, there's some knotweed present, you know, within the riverfront area, to the rear of the house. Right, and there's a, you know, a plan to manage that, and, you know.
I don't think we're ready then with certificates of completion.
Complete certificates of
Right, or, I mean, or even, you know, partial, you know, I mean, are you still looking for, would partial certificates of compliance?
So as far as I know, the applicant has received occupancy permits for all 3 houses, and I believe the sales and the closings went through, which was kind of their, you know, their time constraint. So I don't think getting a full certificate is critical, but if it's possible to get a partial, especially for Lot 1, if it seems like it's fully stabilized, then we would certainly be interested, depending on what the commission thinks.
Well, in terms of, so with the plan to deal with the Japanese knotweed with Cooper's Poison Ivy Service, has a contract been signed with them yet?
I'm not sure.
Okay, because in thinking about it, one of my thoughts had been that before they do the treatment is on the site plan to identify the areas where they find the knotweed, then do the treatment, and then a follow-up visit to demonstrate how it's effective, and have that done each of the years of their doing the treatment, so that we can also see if they're reducing or if it's spreading more, to find out how effective this plan is. I don't know what other people feel.
It's fine.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
that makes sense to me.
Okay, yeah, so I think, we'd like to see a little bit more detail, that kind of detail in
Long-term.
in what the contractor is going to be doing to deal with this, because August is a couple of days away.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so we can do a partial for Lot 1,
Yes.
which,
And that, the project areas and work subject to this partial certification that have been completed and are released from this order are everything but the management of invasive species within the riverfront area.
That still needs to be done before a final certificate of compliance is issued.
Yes.
Something like that.
yeah, so a partial certificate of compliance to everything but the
Invasive management,
invasive management, okay.
which we do require to be executed and then come back for full compliance. Okay.
So can I have a motion?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
So that was
Can I
one.
ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
Is that partial order for all of the lots or just for lot one?
That was one.
Just lot 1,
Yeah.
lot 2, there's still,
Just wanna
that
make
has
sure.
the fill, that,
Yeah,
questionable
yeah.
fill.
That makes sense.
and
Where did you see that? 'Cause it's the first
Just
time.
beyond the rip. I have a plan. How about that? Just in this area here. Yeah, okay, you're looking at it. Just kind of right at the edge of the erosion control at the toe of the slope. There are about a half dozen of various sizes, but if it's there, I have to ask them the
I'll
questions.
see what I can find out on my end.
Okay, thank you.
And this one also had siltation issues, right? 2 and 3?
Yes, I mean, 2 doesn't have it's not so much an issue, it's just the area, when they remove the silt fence and the wattle, there's going to be probably, 4 to 6 inches of, of accumulated sediment that needs to get, graded and stabilized, and, being on site today with Mr. Cusano did, kind of, put in new erosion controls just downslope of that so that, the area of buildup can get stabilized.
okay, so if we wouldn't be issuing a certificate of compliance if the erosion control couldn't be removed?
Yes, I agree.
Okay. We're all done?
All right, I think so.
Okay, and, yeah, so you'll have something for us to sign for the partial?
Yes.
Okay.
Signature page.
Okay. Moving on to our 7:40 PM agenda item, it's continue a public hearing for Butler, 81 Nutting Road.
But I was the one who was still lunch. I tried to watch the meetings. Hello.
Evening.
For the record, Doug Lees from Land Engineering and Environmental Services. I met several of you out at the site on the sidewalk. Thank you for coming out. It was a nice day for it. But the planning board didn't think so, but, Here representing Mr. Butler and his wife, they're in the audience tonight on their application for notice of intent. I did color one up.
Awesome.
To construct it's actually a definitive subdivision, second home.
Thank you.
I've got a lot on 81 Nutting Road. Maybe two, make it. Thank you. I know Maureen made a presentation at your previous meeting, but I was gonna be here tonight for the next project, so I told her that I would just cover this one too, and she could go to Saugus or someplace like that, she had to travel too. So I just highlighted the buffer zones on this plan to make it a little easier to see. We met out there on site, right at the entranceway. And you can see that the 50-foot limit of work, which is pink, really comes right in front of where the road ties into, the new road ties into Nutting Road, and then comes right up along the, that's the western edge. The green is the wetland, the blue is the preliminary FEMA floodplain. I got that off of the preliminary maps and brought that into the drawing. So that follows the edge of wetland pretty closely, actually. And the riverfront, the 100-foot and the 200-foot riverfront. We made some changes to the plans based on, I watched the video actually of the previous meeting. It's nice having them not only on Zoom, but you can go right on and watch the meeting and not just read the minutes, so you get a little more, you get a little more behind the meaning of what they're actually talking about, not just, what's written down in the notes. So we took a hard look at the pond and added a retaining wall and kind of slid it into that low spot that was there at the site. People may remember when we were out there, kind of reconfigured it to take advantage of the existing grading a little bit better. And we're able to reduce the grading tremendously. On the old plan, that grading was going all the way up to the 200-foot buffer. It's such a steep slope. This is almost a 1-to-1. It's an old sand pit. So once you start cutting into it, you're in for dime, in for dollar. You have to chase it all the way to the end. So the wall enabled us to stay right basically in the footprint of the pond, just a little bit of grading beyond it. And there's some trees that have to come down along Nutting Road, some of them for the pond and some of them for the site distance to maintain
Can you
site
point
distance.
those out with the, I mean, you're doing a lot of talking, but I'm not
Yeah,
really.
here are the trees right here.
So these trees got to come out, why?
For site distance from the road, they're right up against the pavement, so
put in
when you
more?
pull out in the driveway, you really have to pull out, so you're almost in the road to look.
You know how many
right
trees
now.
you're taking out? A guess?
Maybe 6 or 7. 1,
Can we
2,
put in 6 or
3,
7
4,
somewhere else?
6, 7. The site is wooded. We're really limited we're limiting the amount of disturbance because it's riverfront. We have the road with the shoulder and a steep slope. The planning board actually waived planting street trees because we'd have to cut down trees to plant trees. It's
Consider putting one of those mirrors on the other side of the road so you can see.
that would be possible, but the town engineer, engineering wants to have the site distance. They want the trees. They made us do a site distance plan and profile showing the site distance in both directions. I think those are acceptable for a driveway, but once it progresses to a roadway, they have different standards, and we weren't able to do this as a shared driveway. So we had to do it as a roadway. So those are really the big changes to the plan. We added some wattles. It was talked about adding wattles on the opposite side of the street. We extended the wattles, well, I actually don't know if I extended the wattles further up. I did, but then we redid the grading, so I might have brought them back down because before the grading, I'll extend pretty much the lot corner. There's a few more trees that had to come down just from the grading of the pond. We added some more wattles up in this area for the engineering department, which are actually up the hill from the roadway, but it's easy to put the wattles in. So, and we looked at that. Did we make any changes? We added a little area right here for the students to stand. School bus, wait for the school bus. It's just a little gravel area, 5x8 gravel area for the kids if they have to get off of the street, the school bus. But again, it's 2 houses. Right now they're living in one house and they plan on, the intent is to have family move into the other house, so it'll be their grandkids waiting for the school bus. So those were the changes. There was some comments from DEP. Well, one thing I should mention is on the plan, right, I put a table with the disturbances in the riverfront, and when I modified the plan, I neglected to change one of the numbers. So the number on the plan for the pond says in the outer riparian is 10,515 square feet, and it's really only 4,010 square feet. That's actually, the numbers from the old plan. So that is one of the numbers. I have a few revisions to make for the planning board. We had a meeting with them last week, and it went really well. And they're meeting again in August, and they're hoping to have an approval, a conditions written to discuss at that meeting, so we made a lot of progress at the August meeting, I mean, at the last meeting with them.
So that reduction is, a lot of that reduction is because of what you've, the
Right.
changes with the detention
Right.
pond?
Yeah, the total disturbance in the riverfront on the previous plan was 16,530 square feet, and it's been reduced down to 9,850 square feet. It's a 40% reduction. And with the old configuration of the pond, when I submitted it, I tried putting a wall in, and I still didn't catch up with the grading. I ended up with 3 walls, and it just got really, didn't seem like it was making any sense, but when we reconfigured the pond, that's when it really all trickled together. And I actually reconfigured the pond. I figured I was just going to do it to show you that it wasn't going to make a difference, and it did. So I was wrong, and I was glad.
Yeah, I'm still a little just trying to understand. I mean, I'm looking at the current layout as it is now. The house, the road, and there's this, since we're putting in one house, we have to remove all of these trees because of sight distance. I'm not quite understanding why that has to happen to put in a house. I mean, right now, that single house doesn't have any sight distance issues with it.
I mean, considering I've been to the property 3 times and I've almost gotten hit coming out of there twice, I do think there is, I mean, there are sight distance. I can certainly get clarification from, I mean, I think this is one of the instances where, you know, this was filed as a limited project, and I think it was so that,
you know, I'm just trying to read some of this. These are some good-sized trees to be taken out of here. You know, and it's hard for me to, like you were saying, it's almost impossible to read. But, you know, I'm looking at a 30-inch oak maybe, you know, some super large pines, some big stuff. I mean, old growth for sure.
But again, that whole hill is treed. That whole hill is wooded. So we're taking down 6 or 7 trees on the edge of a forest.
Could we plant something that would be lower growing that would never get high enough that it would be a problem?
Well, it's 3.5 feet is your eyesight distance in the car, and the reason that and at the road it has to be down to, you know, I think it's 3.5 feet again. So you're basically looking this high. So there's.
Is Wendell Place on the other side of this?
It's
yes, that's Nutting
To the
Tar
east,
LLC. Yeah, so this is.
Okay, so that's also going to start increasing the traffic flow, the traffic volume that you see on the
And the
street.
reason that even from the driveway, it's now a street. There's a 40-foot right-of-way. It's going to be a private right-of-way. It's going to be a private road, but it is a road, so it has to fall under the subdivision standards. It has to fall under the road standards. We were able to. The fire department wanted the roadway 20 feet, even though the planning board regulations say 18 feet, and they wanted a full turnaround at the top, which would have required more disturbance and more pavement at the top. And to avoid that, we're actually putting he's agreed to put a sprinkler system in the second house, in the new house. So he's incurring the cost of putting a sprinkler system in to keep the roadway 18 feet and to put a T instead of a big turnaround to minimize, you know, it's to minimize the impact. It's a savings of some money on the road, and it's a cost of money for to sprinkle the house. But that was a negotiation we had with the fire department at the preliminary subdivision phase. We submitted to the planning board for a preliminary subdivision before we came to the definitive stage. So we've been working to reduce the disturbance. It's a shame that those trees have to come down, but in all honesty, the town probably shouldn't have those trees in there right away, right next to the road in the first place. The town should probably be taking those down because they're not just, it's not just an issue for the pulling out of the street, but as the road bends, it becomes an issue of just driving down the road. Because they're only a few feet off of the pavement, and they're large, and they hang over the street.
Well, if we kind of follow that, you know, a lot of Westford is like that.
Yeah.
And, you know, that kind of gives Westford its character. So I kind of hate to see those nice trees removed that are so close to the road because, you know, Westford loses its character when we take more of those trees down. I mean, but I hear what you're saying, but I just, you know, if there's ever opportunities to save trees, I try to save them.
So, with those trees gone, what's in the wooded area behind them, are those trees, you know, are we then looking at significant trees there that will now kind of grow up?
I mean, those trees are probably 40, I mean, they were probably 50 years old, 50 years, the trees that are there, because he bought the house 40 years ago when they were, you know, this high at that time. So they're pretty mature trees that are on the site.
I think what you're asking is if you cut down those trees, are there big trees like that right behind it?
Or trees that will then be growing, will then be better able to grow and will have more access to sunlight, et cetera, and you'll actually see those trees then becoming...
They'll all grow and lean towards the road.
Right, that's true, too. Yeah.
Okay.
So, okay.
That's what'll happen.
What's proposed to be planted within the disturbed areas of the riverfront? Is it?
It's really just, it's really just that, the slope right here, the 3-to-1 slope, and the slope around the pond and the berm. So it's really just going to be seeded with, you know, grass seed, and then allowed to naturalize. It won't be mowed.
Okay.
It'll be a slope, so it'll be allowed to
It should be a
naturalize.
natural mix and not grass seed.
Yeah, no, you know, a conservation.
The conservation mix, yeah, sorry, I couldn't
Of
think of it.
grasses and forbs and all the other.
The bottom of the pond will be maintained, but the rest of it will be allowed. Yeah, it was a site distance profile. You just went by that. We had to prepare for the engineering department. And if we had the eye for the car has to be 14.5 feet back, and which is, nobody ever stops 14.5 feet back from the edge of pavement. Now cars are a lot shorter. But these are the standards that we have to follow. And then the eye looks, it has to be same height from here to, we have to be able to see 200 feet up the street. And any obstructions have to be removed.
Any more inputs?
Just one thing that I think Doug just kind of didn't address was one of engineering's comments from the initial plans submitted had some form of level, the last 60 feet of the roadway to be maintained somehow, and the Cape Cod berm stops just after the catch basin on the
westerly side,
so that any flows can then beyond the catch basins can infiltrate, can ultimately flow towards wetland series C. And
right, I remember the people on the sidewalk might remember there was a spot right here. It was dirt. It was a low spot, and that was where the water was flowing to now, and it'll continue to flow in that direction. I imagine with the amount of rain we've had recently, that overflows towards the wetlands, but in general, that's where it goes to, is that low spot that was right there. So in the new design, we took the curbing out so that the water could go back there, and before we were kind of forcing it to go out on the street, and it would have to cross Nutting Road and go into the wetland across the street. Engineering suggested that we take out the curbing there and let it settle and then flow into the, before the site walk, I was thinking I was going to have to create some place for it to settle, but when we went out there, we could see that there was already a natural location. I didn't want to get into that's within the 50 foot, that's probably within the 25 foot from the wetland, so I really didn't want to have to touch anything over there. And it seems to work.
Any more comments or questions from the commission? Jim?
My only comment had been about that hillside, that the clearing was going to occur all the way up to the top, and your readjustment of the infiltration basin addressed it. Thank you.
Oh, well, the other thing for the help with that was we did the test pits, and we got a really good water table. It was like 6.5 feet at that spot, and we went down 11 feet up the top of the hill. We didn't see a model or a drop of water or anything. So.
All sand?
Yeah, all sand. It was a sand pit, and it left some.
Any comments or questions from members of the audience? Would we have a draft order of special conditions for the next meeting, or?
Engineering's still performing, just verifying that all the stormwater numbers still work, correct?
Yeah, I haven't heard back from them, but yeah.
You know, but they're anticipating having that for the planning board's meeting on the
26th.
21st.
21st, yeah.
First.
The DEP letter we got, that we just saw this afternoon, I only had a chance to skim it before our meeting tonight. Anything in there specific that we didn't do? I saw things in there that we had addressed.
No, I think some of them were kind of the alternatives analysis where, it was a riverfront area, a degraded riverfront area, so they didn't need to do an alternatives analysis for that, or for, but at the same time, the commission and the bylaw, and the rules and regs does want to have, an alternatives analysis, prepared. So it's kind of one of those, well, it didn't fit for, one part of it, but it fits for, a different part of the commission's regulations. I do think most of the items have been addressed, again, I think.
You didn't see any that jumped out that we missed? Okay,
no,
good,
and,
good.
a lot of them were kind of more so advisory, just, whether or not it was a limited project. And, I think, after Eric's comments, I do think I will add a finding that, this is a limited, that, the removal of vegetation within, well, certainly, it is, cutting, 7 mature trees, the planning board, I can certainly find the citation and include that in the commission's next packet, for, the limited project of a, driveway, roadway of minimal acceptable standards to the planning board, and, where the planning board kind of in there want to make sure that the sight lines are sufficient. I think there is some synergy with, a limited project. So I do think that's.
They're all in the right of way, not on the.
Right, they're all in the right of way,
property.
But if engineering is going to have a, review for the planning board's meeting on the 21st, we could certainly continue this to the commission's meeting on the 23rd. I'll have, sufficient time to draft special conditions, and have a fruitful discussion at the 23rd.
Okay. Can I have a motion to continue the public hearing until August 23rd? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to our 7:50 PM agenda item, continued public hearing for Franklin 31 Bridge Street. Good evening.
Good evening. We have the engineer that put things together, hopefully to your satisfaction. I'm ever hopeful.
Hey again. For the record, Doug Lees from Land Engineering and Environmental Services, here with Chris Franklin on, I'm not even sure what we're here for, 31 Bridge Street. A project you guys have been involved in it for longer than I have, and I'm trying to play catch up. So we went out, we did a survey, existing condition survey. We had all the wetlands flagged and the riverfront flagged. I did an existing condition survey back in February of 2023. Brought that to the town, and then I had some conversations with Matt, and he sent me over some information on some of the history of it so I could try to see where we were going. Prepared a plan to give us some place to something to look at and discuss and see where we want to go from here, I suppose. I don't know how many of you have been out to the site, or I'm sure you're all familiar with the site.
We're on to the site.
A few times.
So what we looked at was trying to find ways to isolate the activities on site from the wetland, trying to designate certain areas for certain uses so that we would know moving forward what could be done and what couldn't be done and what could be done where. There's a lot going on the project, on the site, so I guess start off where he has, we added some snow storage areas, try to keep them away from the wetlands as far as we could. Some here, and up in this area here. I did add one, a couple down on the bottom of the site because the pavement's just here. Snow storage here. These boxes you see throughout are concrete blocks, similar to the ones he has out there already that you get from the concrete company. Is when the truck comes back, they just form, with extra concrete, they just form blocks with it. 4 by...
Yeah, 1 by, like 3 by 4.
3 by 4 by,
Yeah.
by 3, you know.
Yeah.
They're pretty heavy, they're pretty big. He puts them a couple feet apart so the water and any animals can get through. It's not like a wall or a barrier, but people aren't going to drive through. If you plow snow, you're going to have to stop because the concrete blocks are there. Eventually, the vegetation grows, and right in this area, because I parked right there, there's actually some underneath the bushes. I was surprised to see already. He had put them there probably to keep people from driving off the pavement. But, so we added those throughout the site, some here, some scattered along here, and coming around this wetland here to protect it. And then coming off this end, I'm showing an earthen berm to keep the water from just flowing right into the stream, try to catch it and have it sit, slow it down, have it sit, allow it to soak into the ground before it gets into the wetland. We try to identify areas for vehicle storage, some areas that the parking up on it's basically a loading dock, but people were parking up there and it seemed like a suitable place to park. There was a couple of vehicles parked in this area. Then most of the vehicles were parked in front of the building, beside the building. Over here, there was a row of parking, and then there's parking up in this area. So most of the parking was centered over in this area and in front of the building. And that seemed to be preferred because it was on the asphalt. And these are, you know, from when I was out there, which was just maybe 3 weeks ago, you know, a month ago. As we move across, yeah.
Yeah, Jim?
All the storage boxes that are identified, some of them are right on wetlands and others are within like 10, 20, 30 feet.
Right.
Are there restrictions, limitations, or ideas of what's going to be stored in them? All they say is metal storage box or metal or canopy shed or metal storage box.
We, in a previous time, we gave you pictures of everything that was stored in them. And you said, do not ever bring another one on without your permission, or never bring another one on the site. So we have, in previous meetings, gone through everything that was in the storage containers.
So
There has been no added storage containers added to the site.
I did see pictures from the file, you know, in the past, and they just had random stuff.
Yeah, so we haven't added anything, we're not adding storage.
The idea, no petroleum products, no gasolines, no oils, that kind of thing is, that would be part of the plan. I don't know what.
Although these things aren't permanent structures, they are storage containers. They were meant to be moved. They are boxes, so they aren't permanent structures.
I'd like to move further than 10 feet away.
So we should be able to move these things.
Okay, good. I think some of them need to be moved.
I mean, I don't look at them as permanent structures.
It's almost like they would.
Some of them are right on the wetlands, like this one here.
Yep.
Some of them are within 20, 30 feet here and here.
There's got to be a way that we can...
Take them away.
So if that's just junk in there, any chance you throw them away? Properly dispose of the
Probably can
contents?
tell them to get them the heck out of there.
What?
They don't belong to you?
They don't belong to me, none of them.
So
they're
the
all
boxes
tenants.
belong to your tenants?
Yes.
Is it, so I get,
Tenants have been there for 30 years, so understand, so.
but I'm just wondering with, you know, is there a place, you know, now that we've kind of getting the site under better control, is there a place that we could designate to put storage boxes for the tenants so that they're still available to the tenants, but they're not in as close to the wetlands as they are now?
It's a large paved area.
I know, yeah, stick them on the paved
Yes,
area
yes,
somewhere.
that's far
you
from
know,
all the
and
wetlands.
Far away from the wetlands
It's all
as you
outside the
can.
100-foot buffer.
Yeah.
Or most of it is. Yeah.
All 5 of them?
I can find out. I mean, we have I can see what I can do.
Okay.
I mean, it's,
That would make us very happy.
okay.
Yeah.
We can look at areas and talk to the tenants and find out which ones that
That's
which
always
ones they
gonna be a
need, which
problem.
ones maybe they don't use anymore, and
Either way,
to put them.
I don't see
Well,
why
even
they
if
would
they
have,
need them, we could find a.
as long as they can have the storage.
But I
I
think,
don't see where it would
But I mean,
matter.
the whole site is within the 100-foot buffer, right?
yeah, but I
I
think,
mean, we run the
It's not sitting on the brook.
All of this here is
Yeah.
outside.
It's paved, yeah.
There's 100 foot here.
Yeah.
but I,
Yeah, but that paved area, we've got, during the day, you've got probably 30 vehicles that show up.
I think more than that,
like,
yeah.
Landscapers or pavers, yeah, I mean, they're, all the employees show up.
The welding shop.
Yeah.
The guy in the back.
that-
Yeah.
Something.
Jim,
I
with
mean,
your,
it's
When they come.
Yeah.
during the daytime. At night, it doesn't, I mean, if you drive by at 5
What do
o'clock.
they do when they come? I mean, what if they,
Well, the landscapers, they show up with the employees show up with their cars, hop into the trucks.
oh, they make a
and then
transfer?
They
Yeah.
transfer, and the same thing with the paving. You know, the paving people show up, you know, hop in a truck or, you know,
20 feet.
head off with all their tools and equipment.
So like Jim says, let's just find a better place to put them that's
Yeah.
right on top. Because they are structures that should be able to be moved. and we
That's
just
always
need to
been our
get them
biggest
out of the
bugaboo.
resource area.
If it's garbage or just trash in them, dispose of the trash and get rid of the boxes.
Right.
I mean, the boxes are just an invite to attract hazardous materials that are gonna be stored within 10 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet of our wetlands.
but I think, Jim, your question also sounded like you were kind of going to, if a tenant has a storage box, is there a list that tells them
What they can or
what they
can't.
can and can't put in there, so that over time,
Yeah, well, in the last few years, we've told them no, you know, no pesticides, no oils.
Have you
You
ever
know,
done a
you know.
surprise
No
inspection?
chemicals.
Huh?
Have you ever done a surprise inspection?
Well, the last inspection we did, yeah, it was pretty much, you know, it was,
Good?
I found one spot that had a small rack where somebody had, you know, like they'd done an oil change and a couple of things, but it realistically was fairly minimal,
Good
the
to
amount of
hear.
stuff.
That's good to hear.
So it really, everybody knows there's no gasoline stored in them, there's no oils stored in them, et cetera, and no, you know,
and I'm just thinking that as the businesses continue over time, you know, as new family members may get involved, it's good to have something written that reconfirms for people who may not have been involved in those initial conversations. this-
I'd be
Yeah.
more than happy to put something together and,
Just
you
wrote that
know,
down.
Yeah.
and just get a list to say, this is what you can have here and not have here, that's not an issue.
Okay, Noel?
This 30-foot buffer right here, I'd like to see this all on the other side of it, where the snow storage is and where these proposed concrete blocks are. Would that be possible to move those out of the 30?
I mean, it's paved right now, so I was just kind of using the existing pavement that was there. So we move the blocks over onto the pavement.
Yeah, so they're out of the 30-foot buffer.
Well, is the pavement in the 30-foot buffer?
Yes.
Yes.
That's, I mean, the pavement's been there.
Pavement's been there longer than most of the people here have been alive.
There is a 30 by 30 area they're showing for snow plow storage next to the 2-story wooden building
Yep.
in the bottom right corner. Just kind of trying to moving along through the.
Yeah, I haven't moved over to.
Keep moving right, you know,
right.
and, you know, and there is a proposed infiltration trench behind the snow storage and the that storage area for.
And we were looking for someplace to store the snow plows where they'd be able to get them in the winter when they were using them. And so we came up with putting there's an existing driveway coming off the road, probably for the old house. So adding up just a stone area to put the snow plows on, and then putting the infiltration trench behind it to catch any runoff off of it from getting to the well.
How big is this whole piece of property?
Do you want to store the vehicles on?
Just the snow
Just the
plows, the
plows.
blades.
Oh, the okay.
blades, yeah.
Got it.
Not the vehicles, just the blades. Because if you've been out there, they're kind of haphazardly everywhere. So
All different owners.
that might be a problem too. If Bob needs his.
That's gotta be answered, that's my plow, that's your plow, you know.
Yeah.
That might be a logistics problem come winter time.
That is somewhat of
Too
a
many labels in the
logistics issue.
kitchen.
Yep, so then we get over to sheet 2 and I had some more of those concrete blocks coming off the side of the building, and there's just stuff back here. I haven't noticed to remove it all. There's a barrel, it's an huge empty plastic drum that I guess the landscaper got for use once and never used it.
Whatever
So
we can get rid of.
there's a note there to take that out and just dispose of it.
The more we can meet the standards, the happier you're gonna find us.
Yeah, I agree. There's a nice wall along here, and then this is a raised concrete patio, so this area is kind of separated from the brook. So I have some more blocks, some wattles along this side here, just to protect where the head wall is in that area, and then blocks all along this edge. This is all wooded right beside it. And then you come up here, and there's some just a few things out here. It's not a lot, but there's some small trailers and stuff, so there's just enough to take those all out, put the blocks in, so nobody will be able to get stuff
We have
back
a
in there.
before and after picture. When the
That should
time comes.
really clean up this section over here. Again, snow storage in the back, and then I put a little snow storage in the front because they don't want to be plowing it out on the roads someplace.
Okay.
You can, you just get in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, that's right, a few times. Trust me.
Glad to see that's a big improvement in
There's
itself.
a lot going on out there, there's a lot on the plan. I actually had to color the existing condition plan, just so I didn't even know I drew it, just so I could,
We don't expect you to do this overnight.
just so I could follow it, but yeah.
It's a job for job security.
That round circle that says tank,
That's an old water tank.
okay. It's in use or? No, okay.
It's,
Yeah, well, that used to be the square building, and the tank were the old sprinkler system
Okay,
that supplied the building, with a raised platform.
Okay.
That provided water for the sprinkler system for the whole property at one point in time. Because we can't tap into the water line for a sprinkler system because the water line, I've been told, is too small down in front of the building. And the other thing is that where the water tank is, water department made a connection from, there's like an 8-inch water line from Graniteville Road that runs along the railroad track to where that square rectangle is, and they tied it into, they came across the whole parking lot at one point in time and tied into the water line on Bridge Street to give it more water pressure. But that didn't, again, this water line from that connection down towards the fountain, the 31 Bridge Street and the foundry was never increased. And I've been told it's on the water department's schedule to get upgraded, but that was in 2018 when it was supposed to do it, so they're a few years behind on it.
does it make sense to have the location of that water line included on this plan? Just so we know it's
Probably
there?
abandoned it at some point. I don't think it's probably at this point.
I don't know that there's an as-built of it, so we don't really know where it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't find an easement for it.
Warren Sweetser put it in 97 or 98. Okay, so there was no deed or anything else. He asked me if he could do it. I said, sure, as long as you pay where you dug up, and he never did. But
Okay,
that's many moons ago.
so is the thought to remove that existing building shell and tank, or just, I mean, my thought.
At some point, I was thinking I might use it for a small storage rental space,
Okay.
because that's how I make my money. I don't make money by running a business. I run a business.
No, okay, so you might remove the tank, but leave the building
tank, I'd
shell
leave the
to be
building shell
storage?
For,
Okay.
storage or something in some future, but again, when you have the 100-year flood, that whole parking area gets to be, a foot or two of water.
Really? Wow.
We've had 20 inches of water in there. I think we had a 500-year flood back a number of years ago. We had about 2 feet of water in that.
Is that the Mother's Day flood? That was a while ago, was that like 10, 15 years ago,
Yeah,
Mother's Day?
I've owned it for 30 years, so I've seen it twice.
Okay.
So pending, the kind of identified changes tonight in terms of, relocating a couple of the blocks, the concrete blocks in the paved area on page 1 to the 30, kind of documenting a list of, materials, for the commission to review, within storage containers, evaluate whether, any of the storage containers can be
Relocated.
Cleared and relocated, or,
Removed.
just, pending that, would the commission like me to draft an order of conditions to approve, approve this, this plan, going forward, to implement the berm, the,
I guess you could start putting something together.
That'd be nice.
I want to see an effort made to at least remove those, storage sheds. I'm not going to be happy hearing, well, they've got to be where they are, because that's not going to be good enough.
So at least you could begin it.
right, again, but, kind of having,
Yeah, I think
so
you can
summarize,
start.
summarizing the discussion, here's
Sure.
here's the list of 4 things, and, in a month, have a draft set of special conditions for the commission to review and have discussed, and keep moving this forward.
And when we, said you would identify what they're allowed to have, inside these structures, also some sort of sheet created to give to these tenants.
Right.
And maybe it's a quarterly thing, or I don't know how often you do it,
Right,
How you go in a building and you can see a check off that the fireman's been there and everybody's, that same kind of thing. So at least you'd be covered that way.
Right, a list of what couldn't be in there, really, because.
Right, but also a sign off.
and like a monitoring or log, something for them to.
And, you have a
sure that
key,
Put them
you go
on
in, you
notice
can
that
check
they're not
it.
supposed to be storing these things.
And since you're the
Well,
owner,
they give it
you
to
can
them
go in
anyway,
and take a
something.
look. They don't know you're coming in, so, it would feel pretty good to know that it was being kept that way. They did that.
Okay, so,
That's just a piece of it, ongoing, so.
so continue this one to August 23rd as well, and look to have a draft order of special conditions to discuss?
Sure.
Okay. Can I have a motion to continue the public hearing to August 23rd?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much. Good to have you aboard.
Okay, moving on to our 8 PM agenda item is continue the public hearing and issue amended order of conditions for Littleton Clean Lakes Committee and Friends of Forge Pond.
Thanks for your patience.
Yep.
Sitting here 2 hours.
Good evening.
I'm Dave Barr. We presented this request at your last meeting, and there were some questions that I think we responded to. Seemed like people were comfortable with the request. The main thing we were waiting for was a response from the National Heritage Endangered Species Program, and we received that Monday, and Matt has it up there, and they approved the use that we're requesting with a couple of conditions.
So there.
Yes, I think one important piece of this is that they approved the addition of the eco harvester as an approved method. I don't know if they, in reading, the language of this email, which was provided to the commission tonight, I don't know if they're, I remember, the request came in for, the potential uses of all mechanical harvesting techniques. In reading Natural Heritage's letter, I think they're approving just the use of the eco-harvester, and that's, and in the findings and of the special conditions, I certainly, after speaking with Dave about the techniques, and certainly some of them which were proposed in terms of physical, removal of plant vegetation, in terms, especially rototilling and hydroraking, certainly seemed a lot more disruptive. Could potentially cause more turbidity. Certainly had a lot more impacts to the wetland, to the water body than the proposed eco-harvesting and even kind of the cutting and collection. But based upon my reading of Natural Heritage's letter, with the draft special conditions provided to the commission, I'm thinking that the commission may want to just very, focus it back to, physical removal through the use of an eco-harvester, would be approved if the commission feels as such.
Jim?
Along those lines, I think what we really want to eliminate is the references to cutting without collection. And there's one of those in the findings on page B. It's the third finding on page B. You'll also want to get rid of rototilling and hydro-raking. So it should say the commission finds that physical harvesting methods allowed include hand pulling, that's good. Suction harvesting, that's okay. Cutting without collection, I think we want to get rid of that one. And mechanical harvesting with collection, also known as eco-harvesting. And then the rototilling and hydro-raking is crossed out already. So I think in that one, what we're doing, only thing we're really changing is deleting the cutting without collection. Everything else, I think, would be okay to.
Sounds good.
I mean, I understand that. I mean, Dave, what's your thoughts as well? I mean, my initial thought was to just have harvesting.
Just eco-harvesting?
Just that.
I'd be
But
okay
again,
with that.
I can certainly, kind of work
Could go with either one of them, but I think leaving the other ones in there does give a little more, options of hand pulling with collections and suction harvesting, getting it, you're taking it out of the water, out of the lake. Anyway, along the same line, in special condition 44, that also has cutting without collection. And if we just delete cutting without collection from that one, it would read okay. If the proponent seeks to implement manual hand pulling, suction harvesting, or a work plan and map shall be provided to the commission for their review. So that's all fine except for the cutting without collection.
By leaving that in, it gives them more options.
Yeah, if you want to leave more options, I'd be okay with that. If you want to just go to eco-harvesting, I'm okay with that too.
Right. I defer to the commission and the applicant as well, kind of to, what I'm erring on the side of conservative, conservatively, reading explicitly what Natural Heritage wrote.
Eco-harvesting.
And that's,
okay.
But I can certainly, it's the.
You feel
I would prefer not to expand on it and just, if they're telling us what, the use of the eco-harvester is okay, that's what they've mentioned in their letter.
I'd be okay with to focus those two things down to just adding eco-harvesting.
Dave, you have comments?
Yes.
Okay.
So when Matt and I talked about this in the first place, the idea was to expand on what we already had for drawdowns to, rather than having individual siloed processes that expire at different times and have to be managed differently, start to create a comprehensive water resource management plan. And we're moving away from looking at doing more than just drawdowns and physically removing plants. The techniques that were included were all the ones that were explicitly listed in the generic environmental impact report for eutrophication. And the idea was that although we're only specifically interested in using eco-harvesting right now, there's a pretty high bar for bringing this to the commission and asking for approval. We have to do both Westford and Littleton. It takes a couple months to put this together. Costs $1,000 to do all of this, to bring it before you. The suggestion was if we could include the different techniques in the amendment and specifically currently approve eco-harvesting. We have language in the special conditions that says if at a later time, so all these methods are formally approved. If at a later time you want to actively do something more than what we're calling eco-harvesting, you'd have to come back to a regularly scheduled meeting with a request for that and specific reasons for it. But it would be coming back with just a sort of a red line or something like that. So now we'd like to actively do something more than just the eco-harvesting, but we don't have to go through
an amendment process,
the large process. And so I think that was the intention of having all of these techniques that are listed in the generic impact report. In talking about the rototilling and hydro-raking in the last week or so, we agreed that certainly Friends of Forge Pond is not actively advocating hydro-raking and rototilling. The kinds of plants that, when people do that kind of thing, generally it generates a lot of fragments. They may not be selective about where they're doing it. And the invasive plants that we have in the lake can all propagate by fragmentation. So I had no problem with removing those two from the general request. I asked Matt about the cutting without collection. And he pointed out that in some cases, if you're not dealing with the invasive plants that can propagate by fragmentation, if you're dealing with other plants that don't have that characteristic, that kind of a process could be appropriate if it's only used in certain ways for certain plants in certain areas. So my suggestion would be to leave these different techniques as formally approved, with striking, rototilling, and hydro-raking, specifically approve eco-harvesting right now, and in the item in the special conditions where it refers to if the proponent seeks to implement manual hand pulling, suction harvesting, or cutting without collection, a work plan and maps would be provided the condition, and justification, reasons why, and at a regularly scheduled meeting. So a simpler process. I would include there the requirement that we would also have to get an assessment from Natural Heritage for that specific, for that additional kind of technique, which I think would cover all of these concerns, but would give us the kind of flexibility that we're looking for.
So we don't have to amend the order to include the additional techniques. We just need to get the review and approval of specific uses of those additional techniques.
Adding in those additional specific techniques.
Yeah. Okay.
You lost me. Are we adding it? I'm still opposed to any cutting without collection.
But I think he's saying that,
No one's going to go down and check, swim down to the bottom and check every plant and say, oh, this one propagates by fragmentation, we won't
well, I
touch it.
think,
But this one we can cut and just let it float away. No one's going to do that on every plant.
So if we decided that that was something that, for whatever reason, was appropriate at a future time, the request would be to only use it for, in certain cases where we're only applying it to certain plants and certain.
so in certain, so very
Similarly
specific
to
plants,
when you do
locations.
herbicides, you don't just say, okay, we're going to put it everywhere, right? Which would be, similar to saying cutting everything, right? I mean, we say, we do herbicides, we say, we're going to use this on this particular plant in these areas, and it's specific to that. And in this case, if we came back and asked for cutting without collection, it would be for specific types of plants in specific situations.
But I hear what Jim's saying, that somebody isn't going to take the time to specifically identify. It may be more of a wholesale just.
So if you've got
and not
plants
collect.
intermingled,
Yeah, that they'll just do it, and,
So- At this point, that specific technique has not been hasn't been actively approved. It's a possibility, but it hasn't been.
what I'm hearing is that the concern is if there's a proposal to approve that technique for a particular plant, how feasible is it to really enforce that it's only used for that plant if other plants are growing in that same location?
Or interspersed, throughout it or whatever.
Yeah.
So if they're commingled, then you wouldn't use it.
Okay, so what you're saying is that when the proposal is brought forward,
If and when the proposal would be brought forward, there'd be conditions on when it could be used, and it would only
you
be.
wouldn't propose
would only
it-
be allowed in certain conditions where it makes sense.
and you wouldn't propose it where the plants are commingled with others that propagate through fragmentation?
Right. And you, these are the requirements, these are the order of conditions that the vendor are given, right? Just like when they're given orders of conditions for herbicides, they're told you can use this here, you can use this here, and you have to believe that they're going to follow those. They're not just going to apply the herbicides wherever and, damage other things.
Marilyn?
My experience on this board is that your group has been really good stewards of, the area that you work. So I'd be very prone to give him the latitude of having all of these tools, with the understanding that you'd always be becoming before us, and National Heritage would get to,
So Natural Heritage would have a chance to.
So we would
Weigh
take
in as
nothing
well.
away. We would give you the one more tool. But
Currently.
then for each time that you would need to do this,
Right.
we would be seeing you.
Right.
And with that, I have no issue with it.
Because then at that point, we have the chance to say, this,
And we have national,
yeah,
heritage.
so we have the checks to basically say, no, we
So we don't
don't.
have to take something away. It's a tool they can use, but they have to get permission to use that tool.
And we would have,
Yeah.
if we had grave concerns, we would have the right to say no to that
Correct.
particular tool
You'd
in
have
that
the right to
particular
say, you'd have the
instance.
right to say no,
We're not just going to
or,
go in and use the tools
Yeah.
that they have.
right.
So,
Condition 44 is sort of worded in that respect, like you're talking about, where if you're going to use a certain mechanism, you have to provide a work
Yeah.
plan and maps. But the finding isn't. The finding just says that the harvesting method, physical harvesting methods allowed include, and it includes all of them.
so perhaps there needs to be another sentence in there, assuming that these have been pre-approved by.
I don't know, right now, something has to be changed, because the
Once
finding
pre-approved by the
and
commission,
condition
these
for-
are what they can do?
the
Yeah,
finding and
but with
condition
each, with
44
each
are
time
in
they come
conflict.
before us, you know what I mean? It's not an open,
40 could reference 44 with the understanding of the conditions of 44. Or 44 could be included in 40.
So the concern is that conditions 40 and 44 may be working at cross purposes?
Yes, one
So
says it's
fix it.
approved, and the other one says you're going to have work plans and
Fix it.
maps that'll be pre-approved.
Okay.
I like Dave's thought about taking 44 and adding it to 40, so that it says
Take away the
physical harvesting.
Take away the contradiction.
Right, and so that, 40, then would state that physical harvesting methods allowed include hand pulling, section harvesting, cutting without collection,
With the
and mechanical collection, and it then,
understanding.
if the proponent seeks to implement the manual hand pulling, suction harvesting, or cutting without collection, a work plan and maps shall be provided to the commission for their review and approval at a regularly scheduled meeting. The proponent shall also receive approval from Natural Heritage prior to requesting the commission's approval.
They're all tied into that.
Right, so we're getting, so the process would be Natural Heritage reviews it first to say, yes, this makes sense, this is consistent, and then from there, the request could come to the commission. So we're not kind of...
It's not open-ended.
The finding on page B, the third finding from the top, that one I think needs modification too, because that reads essentially like...
What number?
It's not numbered, the third finding on page B. Commission finds that physical harvesting method allowed include, and then it lists them all. Well, they're not all allowed. You have to go through whatever we're going to write into 40 or 44.
So maybe
say
instead
physical-
of...
How about physical finding that it's approved, or whatever?
Or, instead of allowed, can be acceptable.
Commission would be willing to review these if
With the review, acceptable with the review of the commission
The
for the
commission,
specific project or whatever.
The commission finds that physical harvesting methods consistent with the generic environmental impact report are maybe permissible.
Maybe permissible
The
upon
understand-
approval?
No,
those 3 paragraphs need work.
Yeah,
I know.
So I would say, in the interest of time, take it back and just revise it and bring it back at our next meeting and finalize it.
But are we...
I don't know if we're there yet.
But
And I guess, are we under a time crunch
with
with...
what you want? We're just looking for a level
The
of
correct
protection.
wording.
There is a phrase that doesn't come to me right now, which we could put in there, which basically says, this is approved not in theory, but formally approved, or in,
We'll find it.
so,
We have a problem with time?
yes.
Explain that.
So, I think I explained last time that the plant growth on the lake this summer is extremely heavy. People are seeing things that haven't been seen in decades. Plants out in the middle of the lake where normally it's just along the edge. People that are out in the middle of the lake and their boats get, the motors get plugged, even the cooling gets plugged and the engine shuts off and they can't run. And this is out in the middle where normally there aren't any plants at all. So there's plants out in a lot of places, and as people use their boats, even if they don't get stuck, they're chopping up all this stuff and it's spreading. So we really would like to do this treatment this summer. I'm concerned that, this could be sort of a tipping point if we aren't able to make a dent.
Well, I don't want to rush this tonight and get it wrong for 2 weeks. I mean, we're only in the 3rd week of July here. So,
Can I finish?
unless you can magically write this up tonight, let's think about it and get it right.
the commission finds that physical harvesting methods permissible include hand pulling, suction harvesting. I think permissible is...
Or that could be approved, that could be permitted.
I mean, the order of conditions is
Yeah,
the
we're gonna get this wrong.
No, I don't like, yeah.
Yeah, we're rushing this. We're gonna get this wrong. So let's take our time and do it right.
So if we do that, then we probably won't be able to do anything this
No,
year.
you'll be back in a couple of weeks.
No, but they're saying with the vendor.
Yeah.
So, can I explain?
Sure.
Yeah.
Once we get approval, we still have to wait 2 weeks for any public comment before we can go ahead.
Appeal or something, yeah.
Yeah, and the vendor has a schedule, and they've said that they could, so originally, we were doing Forge Pond at the back end of doing 2 lakes in Littleton, and we wouldn't have to pay for them to come back and, do their transportation again from Connecticut. Now they are able to work us in the middle of August at a reasonable cost. And if we come back in 2 weeks, we'll be at the end of August, and I don't know that we can get in, and at that point, the plants start to drop, and we may not be able to
So
actively.
I can amend it for the other methods then after. Right now,
I think we're
the eco harvester.
We're trying to get too fancy by covering a dozen different mechanisms.
Right.
And saying, well, these are only possible, but maybe not.
But, and only upon our agreement and National Heritage, where right now I've got National Heritage's authorization to use the eco harvester.
Right,
So
the
what
only
if we
thing
give him-
they read
That's
out of
the
the,
only
the
thing
only thing they
that's-
read out of the request was that eco harvesting is going to be, was requested to be added as an approved method.
So why don't we approve
really-
the eco harvesting and then go from there?
If we do that,
That way
fine
you
by
can
me.
get
give you that.
Right, if we just
That would
include
let-
eco
yeah.
harvesting in the addition here today, then all the other stuff can get added
Well-
whenever you plan on using that.
And with all the other stuff, you don't have a time frame in the foreseeable future when you think you might. At this point, those are all potentials for some future time. You've stated that it's cumbersome and there's a cost
It's
to
not
doing the
happening
amendment.
this time right now. Yeah.
Well, no, but it may not, you may not even need these other methods next year. This is something that, yes, there's extra process, there's extra expense, but it's something that may not actually be needed until a year, 2 years, maybe 3 years in the future. So it's, if we really want to tackle the plants with the eco-harvesting, while it's not ideal, if we focus on that now, then we're less likely to miss this opportunity.
Is it possible to approve eco harvesting now and revise the
Yes.
amendment
Yeah.
approval?
For the next meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I would
Well-
see too. If we
What are
do
we,
that-
sorry,
Issue an amended order of conditions. Would it take a new filing to amend, to do a subsequent amendment to pick up additional?
an amendment has to go through, newspaper notification of the butters. That's, it's the full process of a notice of intent, submittal to natural.
Minor mod.
I mean, no minor modifications can be, because, the commission is the issuing authority whom has who can determine whether a minor modification is, or, whether a change warrants a amendment
Or a minor mod. And we've done that before.
Right.
So let us, let them come back with a minor mod for.
Additional manual
To
technique?
finish it up.
Right,
Well, do we also have to stay consistent with Littleton?
I think that would really simplify things. If we
would give him
make
what
this
he
order of
needs.
conditions directly address eco-harvesting, and that's it, that'd be great. And then if we make a minor mod, the minor mod can be, in addition to eco-harvesting, other methods that are
Going forward.
described in the, that paper include the following. And these may
don't-
be allowed if they're reviewed by the Conservation Commission with approved plans and maps in advance. That kind of thing would
Go
be
ahead,
something
please.
we'd add later.
As we're in a public session and DEP could very well hear our deliberation about how to end around, I'm certainly, I think if the commission is comfortable with eco-harvesting, I think, and it, you know, and the desire is to implement that, and while it certainly is not the ideal situation, that, you know, all these other techniques, you know, which certainly are less invasive, less intrusive, you know, in terms of manual, you know, particularly with hand pulling, suction harvesting, you know, they're certainly, I think that maybe, you know, a case may be made for those to be considered under a minor modification.
Let's go for that.
But I don't, I think I worry about if we're going to, you know, if we're going to require an amendment at a later date, you know, for additional techniques, you know, so if we approve eco-harvesting tonight,
Yes.
and if the commission, you know, I'm concerned that, I'm concerned that the impacts of the techniques that, you know, are kind of getting left here, that aren't being approved at, you know, in this amendment. Yeah, deferred. No,
it has to be a whole new filing.
Oh.
Right, and so of that, so I'm uncomfortable with that process, just based upon Natural Heritage's letter.
How much does that cost?
Is it, would people be comfortable if we said, in these various places, physical harvesting methods allowed in principle include hand pulling, suction harvesting, cutting without collection, mechanical harvesting with collection, aka rototill, eco-harvesting. Methods, techniques allowed specifically include only mechanical harvesting with collection currently. And then if we change, and then we have these requirements that if we want to actively use one of the others, we have to come back to you, and we have to come back to.
Doesn't sound bad.
I think that's what we were just talking about.
Yeah.
No, you were, as I understand it, you were talking about striking everything except eco-harvesting.
Yes.
But if we said.
Got one document.
If we said allowed in principle, include all of them.
The finding
And the
would,
allowed in principle, we'd have to change that when we come back with to try to add all the others.
no, I think what he's saying is, the finding would say, in principle,
All of these are approved.
all of these are allowed, and then,
For this time,
no,
think we get
all of
fancy
these
with the
are
words.
allowed as a finding because of where we get, what we're using as our reference material for saying these are acceptable. And then in the specific special conditions, we get into, we get into the combined condition 40 and 44.
Then I think it kind of makes it,
I'd want to see the words.
yeah, I'm just,
Okay.
you know, somebody's going to say, oh, this gives me authorization
Right.
to do it, because in principle it says I can do it.
Right.
And you know, and that'll be, well, that's not what we said, but you said it right here. And it's going to be one of those miscommunications like we always hear about, well, you know, it's.
They took the finding to be, they read the finding, they didn't read the special conditions.
Or they didn't interpret it correctly because they thought in principle they were allowed to do something, and they simply read that and said, oh, it says right here I can do it. And you know, they looked no further.
We're not going to do that.
I'm not saying you're going to
No, but
do that.
in terms of thinking, for example, a homeowner who is concerned about what's directly in front of their property. You know, and we're just going based off some of our worst experiences.
Yeah, but that's why we
So how
do
do we
what we
do
do,
this?
because we realize is if we don't get it right, somebody's going to misinterpret it, and it's going to end up not being done properly or the way we want it.
So how is Littleton handling this?
They didn't have that problem.
they didn't have the weed problem, or they didn't have our concerns?
They didn't have the same concerns over this wording.
Okay.
Jim, what do you think?
I don't want cutting without collection, and I think having these somewhat conflicting findings, 40 and 44.
We change the language
We're
while
trying
we're
to get
sitting
too
here?
fancy by including everything all at once.
Can we change the language while we're sitting here?
Well, if we took the words in 40 and the words in 44 and put them together, does that,
Well, the finding still approves all the methods.
no, leaving the finding aside, if,
Okay. So just 40 and 44?
yeah, if 40 and 40, the words in them are combined so that there are now 2 sentences in the condition.
So it'll include hand pulling, suction harvesting, and mechanical harvesting with collection, AKA eco-harvesting.
Include in principle.
I don't want to be,
No.
they're approving it or not.
That's
I don't want to
where
get
it throws it
fancy,
off,
right, I don't want to get fancy with
In
trying to pick.
principle, somebody's going to interpret that
Right,
wrong.
exactly.
Well, the next sentence says, if the proponent seeks to implement manual hand pulling, suction harvesting, or cutting without collection, we have to come back to the commission and to Natural Heritage.
So if 40 reads, physical harvesting methods allowed include mechanical harvesting with collection, AKA eco-harvesting,
Okay, good, so far.
period.
Okay.
If the proponent seeks to implement manual hand pulling, suction harvesting, or cutting without collection, a work plan and maps shall be provided to the commission for their review and approval at a regularly scheduled meeting. The proponent shall also receive approval from Natural Heritage prior to requesting the commission's approval.
That's fine.
So it's clear that this is approved if, the logic equation goes, if A, true, if not A, go to, if A is false,
think
then
that's
you go to,
clean.
then you go, then you go down there.
That's clean.
What happens to the finding? Because that's still there, and it still conflicts, because it approves
What do you mean
everything.
what?
The commission
Finding on the page B, on the third one from the top.
Where
It says-
are you?
It says all the harvesting methods allowed include the third finding on page 10B. Page B.
If I can propose.
Potentially allowed?
The commission finds that physical harvesting methods permissible as based in the practical guide for lake based in that, we're approving these physical methods based upon the practical guidance. Again, that's why it was developed, includes all these techniques, but distilling it in the special condition to practice, it gets to, this is what's allowed, this shall be allowed, all the others may be allowed with, the commission's approval.
So the finding becomes, this is the source from which we've taken techniques that could be approved.
Yes.
Oh, if it describes it like that.
Right, the commission finds that physical harvesting methods as derived from the practical
This study
guide.
describes the following harvesting methods. Okay, that's fine, that's what it describes. But the only thing that's going to get approved are the specific methods that we're going to identify in the special conditions, right?
Yes, and so in special condition 40 would be the physical harvesting method allowed
Is
shall be
harvesting with, mechanical harvesting with collection, parenthesis,
AKA eco-harvesting,
period.
Right.
period. And then the second sentence of that is 44, where it continues on to,
All right,
implementing other
I'm okay
techniques.
with all that except for the cutting without collection. Everything else sounds okay.
So you're still not comfortable with cutting with collection?
No.
Without collection.
So we wouldn't be able to use it without coming back to you and getting approval for it.
I don't want you to be able to use it at all, cutting without collection.
So-
That's just driving a motorboat through there and chopping up the weeds.
So that says that, so I kind of defer to, Matt was pointing out that in some cases that is a valid.
It is a technique, again,
Yeah.
from my past career, I have seen it used. I saw it used once in 10 years.
Yeah, if you get
I mean,
100, if you get 100% of one species in one area.
Yeah, and that'll never happen.
Well, exactly, but if you do have that, you can do it and it'll work great. But if you get any one plant in there and you chop it up finely and now disperse it throughout the waterway, you're going to have the stuff growing everywhere. I don't think we have the expertise to pick out individual plants and to ensure that any field that we're treating is 100% one species. It's non-fragmentation propagated.
So in an abundance of caution, we would not want to entertain, at this time, we do not want to entertain.
No, I think Jim says he doesn't want to entertain it at all.
Right.
Right.
Period. Not this time, not next time, not the time after.
I mean, as we're amending the order of conditions, we do not see a compelling case for having that technique available. That could be revisited in the future when there's a case
Something
where it actually
specific.
makes sense.
I think Jim wants to remove those, so,
Yes.
you know.
Oh, I agree.
The way you just described it would be okay.
Yeah.
If it's not approved, we're not recommending it, but in the future, there may be a situation where
If we ever come up with a compelling case, that's when we do an amendment to bring it in.
I agree.
If they do an amendment.
Right, but
Obviously, he has to come
if there's
back.
a compelling case, at that point, they do the amendment to include that technique.
That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, it's out until
Right now,
there's
it's
really
gone.
a driving need to go through the amendment process to include it. And it might just be easier to collect it.
I think what she's saying is that it's being removed.
Yes.
Yes.
It is being removed.
From this order of conditions.
Yes, it's
Yeah,
being
and we're not going to
removed.
worry about the future. If the future comes, we come back here. How many
Yes, we
times
could
have
always
people
amend
come
it
and
in the
change
future to bring
wall?
it in if there was a need to.
This would allow
But we
him
don't
to go
need to do
forward.
it.
This does not hurt us in any way.
He can go forward now. I'm not saying he can't.
No.
We're just, I hear what
No.
you're saying. I just want it, like Jim says,
And
I want it removed unless there was an amendment to come back that,
That's
you know.
what we just said.
Yeah,
I heard it.
we're agreeing.
We're all in agreement.
We're violently agreeing.
Don't argue.
I think we're all in violent agreement. Let's move on. This poor guy has been sitting
I mean,
there all night.
so is that, you know,
That works for you, does it not?
okay?
Yes?
I think it's unlikely that we would
Don't worry about it.
request it.
Don't worry about it.
Okay, so then you're okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
yep.
Let's make this go forward
So-
tonight.
I have also some just language, some minor amendments to the second condition on page 10B to include the date of the natural heritage biologist's email, and also include the two conditions stated as
From the National Heritage Letter?
from the Natural Heritage Letter.
They're they're on the screen.
Yes, as on the screen, the equal harvester shall not be used in mapped priority or estimated habitats between September 1st and October 15th.
Okay, that's fine.
And harvested materials shall be staged and disposed of or composted outside of all wetland resource areas associated with the pond.
So those would become the new condition 44 and
No,
45.
I'm deleting 44 would just be deleted, you know,
And then, so
outright.
that's 45 and 46.
1 and 2, you know, the 45 and 46
Okay,
incorporated, you know, explicitly.
so is everybody comfortable with all those
I am.
amendments? Can I have a motion to approve the order of conditions, the amended order of conditions is amended?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Eric?
Yeah. I don't have it in front of me, I can't read it, and you know what's gonna happen, I'm gonna miss something, and we're gonna be disappointed.
I'm not the pessimist you are. I don't
I'm just
agree.
saying that, you know,
I don't think we did it wrong,
Okay.
so.
No, it
No,
just-
no, I've got it.
he hasn't.
Oh, he hasn't
Wait,
seen.
this is his
what-
gut feeling.
It's a case of audio versus visual review.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of things being suggested. I haven't seen it rewritten here, and we're voting on something that I haven't seen written, and then I'm gonna see something that I don't like.
And I also feel that if you let,
But I've already voted on it, so, you know,
But I-
that's what I don't like to do.
I think
Because
this
it
is,
just comes back to haunt you.
sometimes in your gut, you take a chance.
We do, and you
This
know,
is-
when we have, you know,
Okay.
no good deed goes unpunished.
Okay.
Thank you for everything.
What is this now? This poor guy's been here since
It's good.
Almost
It's all
3
good.
hours.
I mean, it took me 2 months to put this together, so another hour is not a problem.
Okay, I think
Okay,
we're,
well, I think between, hopefully
we'll
within,
hope for the best.
Close the public.
You'll do the
can I
best you
have the motion
can.
to close the public hearing?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And Eric, I hear your concerns. I hope all the brain power in here has helped.
Well, I
All
hope it
the
all gets,
different
I hope it all gets memorialized in what Matt has to write, but, you know, I just,
If it doesn't, there's a 10.
Well, he could go watch.
Period, right?
Yeah, he could go.
we would have to
I know.
appeal it, yeah. We don't like what you wrote.
Actually, he could watch the tape and get the wording off of that again.
I understand your concern,
Yeah.
and, you know, my last.
And you know why I
and
say
the-
this
the-
sometimes? Not you, maybe not Carol, but in past times, people were like, how come this order of conditions says this? And, you know, it was like, we did this, and Bill did this, and then it ended up this. And it's like, well, that's not really what the intent was. So I've been there, been through that, been asked the
Sounds like a
question,
marriage.
and I have difficulty putting myself in the same position again.
I wouldn't know.
I understand.
You wouldn't know, you said.
English
been
language
married.
can be very, very vague.
Yeah.
Okay, so, it's issued and it's closed and we still got some discussion and action items to go. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Dave will be in
Thank you,
touch.
Dave.
Good night.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, Stony Brook, conservation area, the Broken Bench.
I can provide an update to that. The proof was provided, reviewed, and sent back to the vendor. So we're moving things along.
That's good.
So
Okay.
Nancy saw it and she's okay with it.
I have approved from, I think her email response was approved, period, thank you.
Okay.
And
Sure, she was happy to.
the purchase order's all processed and done?
Yep, I mean, that was done a month ago now, yeah.
Okay. The Edwards Conservation Area.
In interest of time, I'm gonna email you and we can talk about it
Isn't that
next
nice?
time.
Great.
I've only been
Okay.
up since 5.
Me too.
So enforcement order for Cloverleaf.
I do not have an update. I've
Okay.
been,
This is just on the list to keep up.
Yep.
Because we want to take it seriously.
get it resolved.
Okay. Request for 3-year order of conditions extension for the Town of Westford Department of Public Works. Westford's right-of-way.
The commission considered this notice of intent back in, I think, 2019, if not 2016, before that, and it's primarily for the activities that the Westford Highway Department does within the right-of-way that are, I've found to be typically exempt under the Wetlands Protection Act, but not exempt under the town's wetland bylaw. And it's their general, street sweeping, and it certainly is, removal of, as the Director of Public Works, kind of highlighted, it's, routine removal of winter sand from roadway surfaces and shoulders, repair of the road.
I'll make a motion that we grant the request for the 3-year extension.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, request for certificate of compliance for.
This will be tabled till the next meeting.
Okay.
Awesome.
Minutes for July 12th.
Problem.
No problem?
I had two comments on it.
Okay.
On page 1 with the East Boston Camps Friends of Alcohol request, let's see, the motion was actually to be within the dining hall, not a building or tent. We didn't discuss tents at all, and I think the only thing that was going to have the alcohol served in was the dining hall.
Served within the dining hall, okay.
And that's
Okay.
one. And then the second one, page 3, the discussion on the required information for legal notices. It just says a resident, the same resident approached the commission. That's Danis Christodoulou.
The resident never identified himself,
Right. we know who he is.
Right, I mean, but that does, I don't, you know,
Of all things, you wouldn't want to put his name in
you
when
know,
this guy has been,
Whatever, every person that sits there, we always tell them, state your name for the record for the minute, state it for the minute,
And-
except for this guy.
Well, but there are times when the person, I've noticed in the minutes that there are times when the person who stands up and identifies themselves, whether they don't do it clearly or there's some other conversation and the person taking the minutes cannot get the name of the person. So there are occasions where it's person unidentified, just because of the way things happen, so. But, I mean, yeah, you make a point, we know who it was.
Yeah.
He didn't say who he was.
Not that day.
he's on tape. Somebody wants to go find out who it was. Because
Well,
remember,
he
with
doesn't, he
tape,
doesn't identify himself on the tape. That's the thing.
No, he doesn't.
Matt asks him, but he just ignored it.
Yeah. So,
whether the commission entertains that revision.
Whatever. That's it.
I don't need to put the name in.
I don't think.
I don't
Maybe
need
the individual.
I mean, I think it's just beating a dead horse.
Withdraw that comment then.
You're not wrong, but, yeah,
So that's it. One
okay.
edit.
that's a first for me in my 23 years.
I have,
You know?
I have two, when we discussed the enforcement order for Spalding Hills Homes, I thought it was important to, it says that we decide to issue a fine. I thought it was important to put in the amount of the fine
Yeah.
of $3,200. How do people feel about putting in the way we calculated that fine?
I have no problem with that.
Well, it's not having a
Is that so
problem,
that
is do
so
we
that
think
you could
it's...
figure out why it would look like that?
Well, it's because the minutes become the legal record if we ever get taken
So do
to
that.
court.
It's just a little more words.
As, you know, so as, you know, as each violation was fined $100 for each of the four special conditions violated during each of the 4 discharge events, each impacting 2 wetlands.
Okay.
Okay.
And Margaret caught that I spelt Noel's last name wrong.
The what?
And I spelt
Yeah.
Noel's last name wrong in the site visits.
And what?
Because I did the I before E, except, you know,
Okay.
Except in that name.
Spelled right in there.
That's where it was.
Yeah.
it's because I changed it. No, I did the site visit. That was me. Sorry, Noel.
So if there are no other corrections, can I have a motion to approve the minutes for July 12th, 2023 as amended?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. We don't have executive session minutes yet.
Not ready.
Okay, so can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.